I guess that's our tune. Welcome, everybody. I call to order the Federal Way City Council meeting for November 19th, 2024. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming out on what we understand is going to be a little bit of a stormy night. I do want to let everybody know, and also folks watching, if for some reason the power goes out here, we have a generator, thanks to our great folks in Facilities and Public Works, and you'll see a flicker, and then the generator will go on. But for those watching on Channel 21, distribution or airing would get interrupted. I just want to make sure that's clear, but the show will go on. We are fully ready to proceed. We also have our Public Works folks in place for any kind of, oh, that was a flicker right there. And we're fully prepared for the eventualities with the storm. We're expecting 40 to 50 mile per hour winds and what's been referred to as a atmospheric river. So we're going to power through, but more to follow. But I just wanted to let folks know that the transmission of Channel 21 would be interrupted, but we would continue. All right, let's see. Now I will introduce Chief Wong for the introduction of our new officers. Chief Wong.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, members of the council. It is my pleasure to introduce the newest members of the Federal Way Police Department to you and our residents. Mayor Farrell will then administer the oath of office. The four officers standing before you are entry-level police officers who recently graduated from the Police Academy and are currently in our field training program. These officers are quality individuals and people of integrity. We're fortunate to have them as part of our team and serving our community. First officer I'll introduce is Officer Tristan Wood. Tristan was born in Federal Way, grew up in Auburn. Tristan earned a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Psychology from Liberty University. Prior to joining the Federal Way Police Department, Tristan worked for as a chiropractic assistant. Tristan enjoys playing guitar, singing, and recording music. He performs at various venues around Puget Sound area. Tristan also enjoys rock climbing, practicing jiu-jitsu, and traveling. Tristan graduated from the Basic Police Academy on August 29th. Next, we have Officer Josie Palmer. Josie was born in Eugene, Oregon, but graduated from Vashon High School after moving to Washington. Before joining our agency, Josie worked as a customer service for Costco and was most recently a nurse assistant for Ashley House Northwest. In her youth, Josie was a police explorer with the King County Sheriff's Office and fire explorer for Vashon Fire and Rescue. Josie enjoys snowboarding, horseback riding, and hiking. She also loves spending time with her daughters and traveling. Josie graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on August 29th. Next, we have Officer Joshua Toney. Josh was raised in Auburn and graduated from Auburn Mountain View High School before attending Boise State University. Prior to joining the Federal Way Police Department, Josh worked as a sales and operations manager for Shift Processing. Josh graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on October 30th, where he finished number 2 in academics, number 1 in practical exercises, and number 2 overall in his class. Josh enjoys practicing jiu-jitsu, engaging in outdoor activities, lifting weights, and working on his dirt bike in his free time. He also enjoys spending time with his family and at church. Josh is engaged to his fiancée, Perla. And they'll be getting married in May. More witnesses. Okay, next we have Officer Paula Tovar. Paola was born in San Jose, California, and raised in Puyallup, where she graduated from Rogers High School. Before joining the Federal Way Police Department, Paola worked as an assistant operations manager for Demco Distribution. In her free time, Paola enjoys being outdoors, running, hiking, and bike riding with her son. Paola lives with her husband, Sonny, and their 4-year-old son, Jeremiah. Paola graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on October 30th. Okay, Mayor Farrell will now administer the oath of office. Officers, if you can come to the podium, face the podium.
All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name. Do solemnly swear that I'm a citizen of the United States and the state of Washington, and that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the laws of the state of Washington, and will, to the best of my judgment, skill and ability, truly and faithfully, diligently and impartially, perform the duties of police officer in and for the city of Federal Way, County of King, State of Washington, and other duties as prescribed by law. All right, congratulations. Welcome.
Okay, officers, you can exit this way. And Federal Way Police family, this is your opportunity to exit. Okay, make sure you give a tour of the police department. Pictures?
Hey, Chief?
Yes.
Should we get a-
Officers, stand by. Come out. Come to the front and center, please. They want a photo opportunity.
Maybe if we could have, what do you guys think? Should we go down there, or should
No,
we
just
stand
stand-
up here?
we'll just stand
Up
up
here?
here.
Okay. So officers, oftentimes what we do is if you have kind of line up there, we'll look tall back here.
I'll look tall. Oh, no,
You're perfect right
well,
there.
actually, I don't know, you're pretty tall.
Perfect. Okay, move over just so, no.
Okay. Congratulations.
Congratulations. All right.
Be safe.
Bye.
See you later, brother.
You know? Yeah. Cool. Okay, now we've got Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report. We've got the screen over there. Thank you, Bill, for putting all this together. So we had our legislative priorities breakfast with our 30th district legislators on November 7th. We were at the community center. That wasn't, well, that was last Thursday, or the Thursday before last, excuse me. Anyway, it was a great opportunity to speak with our two House members and our senator. And the council members took turns talking about the particular issues and had a very healthy, positive discussion about thinking about and planning for the next legislative session. It's a long, what they call a long session or a budget session that follows an election year, or it's an even number year. So that's a 105-day legislative session. And we appreciated their time and candor, and we're going to obviously keep in touch with them between now and the time the session starts and ongoing. And our two lobbyists, Jim Hedrick and Luke Esser, were not only at the breakfast, but they're in regular contact with them as well. So it was a good conversation had by all. Okay. Next, we just had a really great event. Every year, the Boys and Girls Club has its young students paint a plow. There's the teen group over at the Ron Sandwith Teen Center, and then there's also the younger folks over there where the Boys and Girls Club Center is off 8th Avenue, just south of St. Vincent's. And that's where we were that day, and they were just adorable, very proud of their trucks. In fact, actually, I had a very difficult time telling the difference between the older group and the younger group on which one they painted. They did such a great job. And Councilmember Walsh was there with me, and it was really nice. And let's see, and then you could see what the if it's keeping it in the drain, and they had a theme this year. Then we had fall family movie night, Sing at Dumas Bay on November 8th. And then the pictures to the right are for the Federal Way Veterans Day celebration, November 9th, 2 p.m. at KOAM. Great celebration. Thank you, Colonel Pelly, our emergency manager, for your great keynote address. Thank you to Kiwanians, right?
Yes, the Kiwanis Club sponsored it.
That's right.
Along with the city and Vicki Chenoweth.
That's right. A big thank you to Vicki Chenoweth. We had, there have been different permutations and different traditions in regard to, how we've celebrated Veterans Day, and whether it was at a high school with involvement with the school district. But Vicki Chenoweth really took the initial steps and, really got it started. A big special thank you to Bill Vadino. And all the work he did with Vicki and the Kiwanians to make sure that we had a very special event, and it was very nice.
And also Councilmember Walsh, who sang for us.
Councilmember Walsh, you did a fantastic job singing. Thank you very much for your service in that event. Okay, let's see here. Next, we had, you could see there to the left, the picture at Wildwood Elementary School. We had actually asked the port, specifically retired Admiral Stephen Metrick, who's the CEO of the port, to add Federal Way as a location for public comment for the SAMP, the public process for commenting on the expansion of the airport that is going through a public comment phase. And not only did they put us in the mix, they made us the very first date. And I have to tell you, I was really, truly impressed with the presentations. You see the boards behind me, and actually the middle picture is from that same event. And they brought people with all kinds of experts in regard to noise and elevation and different types of impacts that aircraft have, and what it's going to mean. What would this increase mean to the surrounding community? And so we very much appreciate the port's willingness to not only have our voices heard. This was we actually brought in someone that does. Oh, that was it. That was, so I take it we're on a generator now? Okay. So we brought in our own videographer and made sure that we got all the, for the people that are going to watch it on YouTube and Channel 21 and on our website, it was like you were there. And I do a little brief video, and then we're going to make sure that we get that out there to the community. So it will be almost like they were there. And there's all kinds of ways. I have to tell you, I was so impressed. There were so many ways that you could give your testimony. They actually had someone there that was a stenographer, like a court reporter, that could, like a deposition, that could take your input. Or you could type it in, or you could give it orally. It was actually a very, very important process, and I think it's substantively, they want to make sure that our voices are heard, and we appreciate that. And are we, do we just need to reboot that real quick?
Yeah, it needs to restart.
Okay.
Come back over.
I'll just wait for a second. This past Saturday, we had, there's a picture of myself with some folks with the Public Works folks. We had a shredding, paper shredding and tire recycling this past Saturday, the 16th, at El Centro de la Raza, right off 16th there. And wanted to give a shout out to El Centro de la Raza for having that event, and also just our great Public Works employees that staff that event. We've got an upcoming community events. The Association of Washington Cities is having a District 3 meeting at Lake Wilderness Lodge on November 22nd. We have the Arts Foundation Federal Way and Pack Holiday Festival for 2024 on Saturday, November 30th, 10 p.m. to 1 p.m. And then we've got the traditional Jingle Bell Brunch at the Community Center on December 7th at 10 a.m. And that's something I always look forward to. My wife reminded me, isn't that for little kids? And I'm like, hey, I want to go too. So Santa's going to be there, and a lot of, I'm sure a lot of adults will be there with their kids. But I've got a 17-year-old now, and I don't know quite how I would trick him into getting over there. But a lot of kids are going to be over there for the Jingle Bell Brunch. And thank you to John Hutton and his team. Let's see here. We could show the pictures.
Still booting up.
Okay, I'll just go through. Okay, so I talked about the Jingle Bell Brunch at the Community Center December 7th. That same night, I think we're getting close.
All right, let me just, okay. Let me get our meeting back up as well. Yeah, sorry, I just have to get the Zoom meeting back on. Okay. And you got this. Close. There you are. Okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah, great job. Thank you, Kobe. Let's give Kobe a big round of applause. Thanks, Kobe. Okay, let's fast forward to the recycling folks, to the El Centro. Next. Oh, actually, back. So those folks at the bottom right, where's our staff? Let's go back. Right there. Okay, now forward.
Take
Okay.
2 steps to the left.
Exactly, that's right. So we got the Jingle Bell Brunch, that's the information there. Okay, next. On the same day that we're having the Jingle Bell Brunch, later that same day at 4 p.m., we're going to be at Town Square Park for the annual tree lighting event. We're going to have a great event there. Hope you can make it. Bring the kids. We're going to have some hot chocolate, cookies, and Santa's going to be there as well, and usually on a fire truck. And it's usually a really great event. We've started now. We were wrapping that tree there with about 10,000 lights, but it was really actually every year starting to kill the tree. So now what we've done is we erect and by we I mean our Great Parks staff, erects this steel casing around it, and we wrap the lights around that. I think that was the first year we did that to protect the tree, because we were essentially loving it to death with all those 10,000 lights. Also want to say a special thanks to our Public Works folks who have put out the lights on the light poles throughout the city. It looks beautiful. Yes, thank you. Okay, and then we have God, I can't believe next week is Thanksgiving. We're going to shut City Hall down at noon the day before, which is tradition around here. So noon on Wednesday, the 27th. And then we'll be closed, obviously, through Friday, reopening on Monday. And then Christmas, the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve, otherwise known as Christmas Eve, we'll stop working at noon on that day, and we'll be off till the following regular business day. That's what I have. That's my report. Now, for the most important part of the meeting, public comment. We all know the rules. You've got 3 minutes, unless you're speaking for 5 individuals that are here already. And green means go, yellow means you've got about 30 seconds, and red means please stop. I don't. None of us like to interrupt anybody, and we just follow basic decorum rules. All right. So with that, we've got Sadia Abdullah, and then Catherine North, Anna Patrick, Christine Burley, and then Trinice Rogers.
Greetings, Mayor Farrell, City Council. Ella Baker taught us that change takes dedication, it takes the willingness to stand by and do what has to be done. No matter how many phone calls I receive, I will remain steadfast in my resolve to address what is wrong. It was with firm resolve I resigned as the chair of the Diversity Commission because I refuse to operate in an environment where equity is treated as optional. when those who openly oppose equity are appointed to the commission and a self-appointed liaison publicly denounces the principles of DEI, it fosters hostility and undermines the very mission that we're called to serve. Hatred is not a required component of white supremacy nor anti-racism. Often the mere act of obstructing equity and inclusion achieves the same harmful results. The decision to initially choose Channing Kelly Ray, a seasoned, highly qualified firm, to lead the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in our city, only to replace her with a less capable firm that she trained, is both disheartening and undeniably anti-Black. The decision raises serious concerns about the city's commitment to DEI. When Black women with unparalleled lived experience and professional experience are consistently dismissed, it sends a clear message. Our voices and expertise are undervalued, even in a city as diverse as Federal Way. We will no longer bear the burden of an unjust system, nor will we continue to work twice as hard for half the reward or recognition. We stand united in our demands for real change. Equity cannot remain a buzzword casually inserted into a 900 comprehensive plan. It must be the cornerstone of Federal Way's future. As the 5th most diverse small city in the nation, we can and we should do better. I urge you, Mayor Farrell, to reverse the inequitable contracting decision and reinstate the most qualified firm to lead this critical work. Let's show that Federal Way values diversity not in just word, but in action.
Thank you, Sadia. Catherine North. And her fellow blue-shirted
Commissioners,
commissioners, yay.
yes, we're back.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Federal Wayans. I'm Catherine North, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Senior Advisory Commission. We have here over 600 petitions that we gathered over a short period of time, asking people if they were interested in seeing a standalone senior center here in Federal Way. Over 600. We could have doubled that with a small amount of effort. We are one of the largest cities in Washington, and we have a teen center. We don't have a senior center. Every city around us, Des Moines, Kent, Auburn, even Algona Pacific, have some kind of a senior center. You might ask, what about the one on 352nd? The one down there in unincorporated Auburn, not in Federal Way. Well, that one apparently never recovered from COVID because they're only open 2 days a week. And their parking lot is not big enough for something like a senior center. Then you ask, well, what about the community center? Well, I use the community center frequently. I was there yesterday. It's not a senior center. It has a room with a little sign outside that says senior lounge. I've seen it used a couple of times. Once was when a couple of employees were looking for a quiet place to work. Another time was when they had overflowed children from summer camp or something, and so the room was full of children. I know they have 1 or 2 classes, but it's not the same as a full-fledged senior center. I mean, no disrespect to the community center. I mean, no disrespect to David Schmidt, who handles the senior programming. Maybe if we can't get a senior center, maybe what we need is another employee over there to keep that place moving full-time. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a senior center, and I don't mean 352nd. I mean something like Kent has, something like Auburn has, where you go in there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whichever it is. There's 6 tables of people playing Scrabble. There's a hot lunch 5 days a week. There's people shooting pool. There's a lending library. People gather together to visit with their friends, make new friends, and get out of the isolation of their home.
Could you
At the
pause?
community center,
Catherine, could you hold on for a second? Did you start for 5 minutes, or did you just do the 3? 3? Oh, she had 5 minutes. So that means, can we add?
2 minutes, 27 seconds.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Okay.
You got some more time.
So at the community center, they have pickleball, They have water aerobics, which are wonderful, but not everybody plays pickleball. Not everybody's into water aerobics. For those that want other kind of activities, we don't have it. Nowhere in the city do we have it. And I just think that we owe our seniors who have lived here for decades and paid taxes into this city, I think we owe them more. You know, we started, the Senior Advisory Commission started hosting a lunch once a quarter, and it's grown where we have almost 100 people there, and we have a speaker. Then we partnered with Steel Lake Presbyterian Church, and they have host a lunch once a month at the community center. That's the only time that there's a lunch there, a free lunch for the seniors in this community. Come visit sometime. Come visit. We have a speaker, and the room is packed with people visiting with their friends, meeting new people, and again, getting out of their homes. The mental health of our seniors is important. Often people, they become a widow or a widower, and they're isolated. They don't have a lot of people around. And they don't want to drive on a night like tonight. It's hard for them to get out. People need a place to meet, and we don't have that. So, I don't know. I have a few of my commissioners here. We couldn't all make it because, you know, life happens. And thank you for the extra minutes. But I would seriously like to see the city consider something. We have a teen center. Why not for the seniors? Something.
That's right. Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And Catherine and team, and all the senior commissioners, first, thank you so much for the work you do. I think I'm going to be speaking over there in December, and I can almost guarantee we're going to be discussing this. I think I've suggested to several of the council members that we're going to discuss this at the council retreat. Of course, that agenda will be up to the council, but I think this will be definitely something that is discussed. All right, thank you so much. Okay, yeah. Anna Patrick.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to comment on the budget. I listened in on a recent, I think it was I don't know, it was a discussion about the budget. And there was some discussion about instead of adding cops, 4 cops, one of them being a lieutenant to serve in the transit center area as we grow, the suggestion was to add 2 social workers, which seems like a great luxury for our city. However, we have not fulfilled the Prop 1, what the voters voted for. We have yet to fulfill that to this date. This was voted in a long time ago, and we still haven't gotten there. So that should be a priority for our budget, for transparency, trust of the public. And a lot of times we talk about the number of officers that we have budgeted, but those don't match the ones that are actually out in the field. So we desperately need more officers. Please use the ARPA funds for social workers. That would be a luxury for our city. Let's also keep in mind that we have multi-service center. There's some records that show that maybe there's critical incident responders that work in partnership with King County and the apartment complexes. A lot of things get downgraded. So let's take a look at 911 calls, take a really critical look at the data. So we can figure out what the actual need is, not what the crime stats are telling us. Perfect example, drug crimes went way down during the time when we essentially legalized drugs. Now, drug crimes are way up because we're actually prosecuting. So that is a perfect example of how crime stats can be misleading. Please look at 911 calls and our responses and take a really analytical look at that to determine if replacing cops, which the voters wished to have, with social workers. And also, I support the language device, the interpreter device that was recommended. I think that's a great tool. Highly recommend. There's one called the ILA device that's really great. Speedy response interaction, very practical. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, Christine Burley. And then Trinice. And then Vivian Alexander.
Hi, Council. My name is Christine. I'm a constituent. I just wanted to come here. I just feel like I could just weep when I saw the new officers. You guys are doing a holy calling. Never forget that. And so I just wanted to say to you that as a Christian living underneath your jurisdiction and the things that you guys are working on, I want you to know that I'll be calling before the throne of God your names every single day. Every single day I will pray for you. As you can see here, all the different things that I've never been to a meeting like this, so I'm just amazed. And I'm sure that you guys are challenged day in and day out. And as a Christian, I know that the authority and the knowledge and the wisdom and the discernment that you guys need comes from the throne of God. And so please, I'm going to ask that you allow me to sing my prayer for you. This is my prayer for you, okay? Open the eyes of our hearts, Lord. Open the eyes of our hearts. We want to see you. We want to see you. Open the eyes of our hearts, Lord. Open the eyes of our hearts. We want to see you. We want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, falling in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. We need to see you. Thank you for letting me, that's my prayer to you. I just want you to know I've got all of your names. I will be bringing your petitions and your names before my King, the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ, every single day. And I want to thank you so much for your service. May God bless you. May He give you the desires of your heart. May He give you wisdom. And I pray that this council will be so united and be so moved by the power of God that you may not, even if you don't know Jesus, that you're going to be moved in doing His will without even knowing it. And that other city councils are going to look to you and say, what are they doing over there in Federal Way? How are they meeting their budgets? How are they doing this? And I just pray that the peace of God would rest upon you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trinice Rogers.
I want to thank Sister in Christ for that, for your courageous ability to stand and present the one and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, as I'm thinking and listening to her, I want you all to understand that each and every one of you, as I'm looking into your eyes, you are subjected to the blood of Jesus, whether you know it or not. And with that, you make decisions. Chief, you make decisions. Mayor, you make decisions. And you never know, but when you make these decisions, you're subjected to God's people, So, and I just wanted to lead with, I was reminded by the man of God this past Sunday during the sermon I listened to. This is God, because I was going to speak on this. The man of God spoke Sunday. He said integrity should never be a threat. That was his message. And when I think of this message, I think of something that my family has been going through for about 3 or 4 years with this city. And I wonder why integrity has to be a threat. Why, Chief? Why is doing the right thing? Why is that a threat? Mayor, why is doing the right thing a threat? Why do you fight against integrity? The people of God. And in regards to Ms. Ray and the DEI consultant that this city desperately needs, lived experiences should never be a disqualifier. It appears that upon learning the lived experiences, right, of Mrs. Ray, that was a disqualifier for her. I openly and publicly applaud Ms. Ray the ability to live and breathe the very work she is committed to. It's extremely unfortunate that her lived experiences became a liability and an ultimate disqualifier. Integrity should never be a disqualifier. Thank you.
Thanks, Trinice. Vivian Alexander.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, council members, community members. My name is Vivian Alexander, and I have been a member of Federal Way for the past 8 years. I'm a member of the Human Services Commission. However, I'm not here on behalf of the commission or speaking on behalf of them. I'm here, and I'm asking this question a little bit early because I know we have public comment later on when we're looking at the periodic update. But in reading the, 1,400-page periodic update, I focused on housing because that's where my interest is, my main interest. And there's so much in there, I just tried to kind of narrow it down to ask this one particular question. So today, we're going to hear about Council Bill 894, and it says, rezoning approximately 55 acres from multifamily residential to commercial. So my question is, on page 500, it indicates of the comprehensive plan update, it is titled Missing Middle Housing Options. So my question is, I did not find the place, I may have missed it, but I needed more understanding or clarification of why this was being rezoned from multifamily residential when the city of Federal Way is in such dire need of multiple types of housing. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Vivian. We'll get you an answer for that. Okay, so I don't have any further pink sheets. Thank you very much for your comments. Keith, would you like to address the issue of the DEI and provide some background on that?
Sure. The city has a funded position for a DEI analyst within the Community Development Department, and we've had a number of people kind of move through that position. And when it came time to decide whether we should refill that position or maybe try something different, we sat down and talked through options, and we thought, let's try a different tack. And what we decided was to use the amount of money that the council had approved for us to work on DEI to advertise a request for proposals for a consultant to provide some very specific work items for the city in this initial year of work. And so we pulled out all the stops to make sure that that got advertised everywhere that somebody would be looking for it. And sometimes when you send out a request for proposals, you might get 3 or 4 responses back. We got 40 responsive proposals back to do work for the city of Federal Way on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the next challenge was to try and work through kind of culling that down to a manageable number that we could actually interview and then potentially move a recommendation forward for consideration. So I wanted to put together as inclusive of an interview panel as I could. And so I included staff members from 3 different departments, community development, human resources, and public works, and included the chair of the diversity commission to go through all of those proposals, knowing that that would take a lot of time, but also then to identify 5 of the most qualified consulting firms to ultimately then consider for doing entering into a contract with. So we did that. We came up with 5. We interviewed them in an afternoon, and it was oftentimes when you get a an interview panel together, everybody will have consensus on who's the best consulting firm. And what we had here was we had differences of opinion. These firms that came and interviewed for us, they had different qualifications, different strengths, different weaknesses. And so ultimately, we kind of dug deeper. And, you know, what we see the work product being for year number one is to, I appreciated Anna's comments on language access. We need to put together a language access plan for the city, and we need someone with technical expertise to help us do that. So that is the first thing that we need to get accomplished. The second thing we need to get accomplished is we need to initiate some DEI training for city staff. That has been on pause for a while, and we need to put together a program. And so having a consultant work with our Human Resources Department and the mayor to do that is priority number 2. And then the third thing we identified in the request for proposals was to provide a resource for our Diversity Commission. Our Diversity Commission have a lot of activities that they work on, things that they discuss in their monthly meetings, and having another qualified resource sit in on those meetings in lieu of me, because I don't think I'm qualified necessarily. So that was the third piece of this. And so as we looked at the qualifications from all of the folks that we interviewed, ultimately we believe we selected a firm that will do the best for the city in this first phase of DEI consulting work. And I understand that we have a difference of opinion. Not all the commissioners agreed on who we should move forward with. But I think we have a choice that will do really good work for the city.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now, Chief, in regard to, there was mentioned by one of the residents about police staffing and about something about actual versus authorized. Could you talk about how many police officers do we have? How many are authorized? How many do we actually have? What's on the way?
In the current budget, 2024, we're authorized 150 sworn police officer positions. Of the 150, we have hired 136 police officer positions. So we are currently at 1.35 officers per 1,000 residents or population. In the proposed 25-26 biennial budget, we're looking to add 4 additional officers. That'll bring us to 154 sworn personnel, and that'll bring us to 1.53 or 52, I believe, out of, I'm using the population of 101,000. Now, depending on where you go, the population ranges in Federal Way. The most recent article in the Mirror said our Federal Way population was 97,000 something. But if you go to the census, it ranges 101 to 102. In my figures, I used 101, just a higher number. But going to 154, just simple math, if we hire up to 160, that'll bring us to the Prop 2006 number of 1.6 officers per 1,000 residents. So we have been inching closer. During the Great Recession, I want to share with the council and the public, our staffing, authorized staffing, got down to 122. That's authorized, meaning we had less because there's always vacancy, there's people in the academy, so forth. So since then, we've been real strategic as a city to add positions. And as you recall, just a few years ago, we added 13 officer positions. So the future forecast looks very good. We are seeing a lot more applicants now, lateral and entry level. And our team downstairs very optimistic that in this robust environment, more people are applying to become police officers now. And so we should be filling these positions pretty quickly. But I also want to tell you that I've been very clear with our staff over the years to hire the best candidates, that we're not going to take shortcuts to just fill the position. So you saw 4 officers tonight, quality individuals, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We're not going to sacrifice just filling the positions. But we're going to get closer here soon there.
So you're at 136 now?
We have hired 136.
And how many are in the academy?
I wrote that down. We have 10 in the academy today.
And are you counting those as the 136 or not?
They're hired, yes. They're hired. So you have authorized, and then you have higher positions. Those are the 2 things we generally keep track. Now, because every year you have people in the academy, you have vacancies. We don't have historical data on that. There's no way to go back and say how many were in the academy at that given time. What we do keep track of and what we report to the state is, our budget tells us what's authorized and then who's been hired. So we have 136.
There's a social media string out there that claims there's only 123 actual officers. Is that accurate or not?
When we use the word actual, I define that as people we've hired, and we're at 136.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much. Keith, on another issue, there was a question with regard to I think it's the 900-page update. Can you answer that question?
I can. It could wait till, is Vivian still here? It could wait till the agenda item I, but that's the end of the council meeting, so I'll go ahead and give a brief. So that property, so yes, we need a lot of housing in Federal Way. We also need a lot of jobs in Federal Way. That property that we're suggesting to rezone to commercial is the Christian Faith Center site, and that is the property that is going to be purchased by Sound Transit for an operation and maintenance yard. So it won't be housing even if we leave the zoning the way it is. The zoning that we're proposing to change it to actually gives us some more leverage against Sound Transit when they come in for permitting. So there's an advantage to the city to rezone it to commercial.
All right, thank you. And also, there has been on social media and mentioned this evening about Prop 1 from 2006. Ryan, I'm looking at you. Can you talk about that issue in regard to Prop 1, what it was, and are we in compliance, not in compliance? What is the situation?
Sure. So I don't remember when Prop 1 was passed. I wasn't ready for this. I should have been, but the original proposition did outline basically some specific goals that we were trying to get to with staffing with the police department. It passed, and a consequence of the money being passed in that way is that it is restricted and can only be used for the purposes that were outlined in that proposition for the voters. The argument that we've seen repeatedly over the years is that that somehow locks us into a fixed ratio of officers to citizens. That is not the law, that is not required. What is required is that we only use the money that is gathered as a result of Prop 1 increases for the purposes outlined in the ballot measure. We've been very studious about that. We're audited on that point every year. There's a separate fund. It's not just police officers, it's law enforcement. So a part of my job, a part of some of the prosecutor jobs are listed on that as well. But mostly it goes to police officers. An important point, I think, that gets missed sometimes when we're talking about this is that it's not as if the ratio of general fund has been decreased over the years. We've actually spent more and more money every year to hire and train officers of the general fund money. But the reality is it's been hard to keep the ratio that existed back when it was originally passed. We're just barely starting to get back to that point. So Ms. Patrick is not wrong on the point that we're still trying to catch up to that ratio. The argument that it's required by law is just not accurate. We are complying with the law, and I believe it's everyone's goal to get back to the ratios that were outlined in that ballot measure.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, now, let's now move on to council committee and regional committee reports. The Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee. Councilmember Walsh.
Yes, we did not have a Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Services Committee meeting this month in November. Our next committee meeting will be in December, on December 10th, 5 o'clock, right here in Council Chamber.
All right, thank you very much. Land Use and Transportation Committee, Councilmember Dovey.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next meeting will be December 2nd at 5 o'clock here in the council chambers. It'll be the last land use meeting of the year. And we did have a meeting last month. We were fortunate to get it in early, and many of the things that we talked about are getting voted on and moving on through the rest of the year. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee, otherwise known as FEDREC, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our committee will meet on November 26th at 5 p.m. in this room. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC, Councilmember Cephedos.
Yeah, the only activity, almost activity, was we were going to interview candidates tonight for the committee, but that was canceled, so we're still going to try it another time. But meanwhile, that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Regional Committees report, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. The one thing that, an upcoming event that I'm sure you want people to know about is at the PAC, the Free Holiday Festival. And we go every year, my husband and I, and try to get our grandkids there. This year, they're featuring a toy drive in support of the Federal Way Cares for Kids, which is a really cool program and provides Christmas gifts for a number of children in our community. It's November 30th from 10 to 1 at the PAC. It's free. There'll be seasonal crafts for the kids to do. The movie How the Grinch Stole Christmas will be shown. Santa is there, and you can get pictures, but you have to bring your own camera. And there'll be entertainment. And then this year, I believe they're trying to do have some vendors there with things to sell. But it's really cool. It could be really full. I'd like to see way more people there because it's such a great event for kids. I also want to remind council that if you want to serve on an NLC committee, please sign up by November 25th. Applications are on the NLC website. If you want to be on an AWC committee, sign up is by tomorrow at 5. So please sign up if you want to serve. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Council President,
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll make it quick. So the council just attended the National League of Cities conference, all of us, and learned quite a bit about housing, homeless housing. And so that was quite a big topic. And we also, as you know, talked about AI with regard to government operations. And so I'm trying to set up a meeting for you at Google to go and learn a little bit about AI and how it relates to your government programs. And it's pretty interesting, new technology, and I think we need to move forward with new technology. Also, Councilmember Honda and I then attended another conference on not just homelessness, but how to finance housing, because a lot of people are becoming homeless because there's a gap between what you can afford to buy and what's available in this region. It's called the Cascadia region, everything from Vancouver, BC to Vancouver, Washington. And so there's like a $200,000 gap, which means that most people can afford to buy a house at $300,000, but the average house price is $500,000. So how do we fill in that gap? And the way we do that is with creative financing, and it's going to have to be through public-private partnerships. And I do want to remind all of you that there is financing available through the Department of Housing and Housing and Urban Development through the state for down payment assistance. But what we really need is to build more housing. It's called the middle housing, the middle, for workforce housing, for like your first-time home buyer, for your firefighters and your teachers. And so those are some of the things. For example, we talk a lot about detached ADUs in your backyard, and so we're going to be doing that because the legislature wants us to have density fill in there. But that's like a drop in the bucket. What we really need to do is talk about housing so that you can buy a condominium for a first-time home buyer, so that there's more multifamily housing in that type of idea. And part of the idea is that they've actually mapped, you may not know this, everything from Vancouver, BC to Vancouver, Washington, all of the empty strip malls that can be redeveloped, depending on zoning, into the middle market, the middle housing. And so we're going to look into more of that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, now, moving on to the consent agenda. These items have gone through committee and can be passed all at once. After I read them, I'll ask if a council member wants to pull an item for separate consideration. 7A, minutes for the November 6, 2024 regular and special meetings, and November 7th, 2024 special meeting and legislative agenda summary. Item B, on-call asbestos abatement contract project acceptance. Item C, King County INET customer services contract. And item D, the 2025 asphalt overlay program preliminary project list and authorization to bid. Council, are there any items you would want pulled for separate consideration? All right, Council President Kochmar?
I move approval of the consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matters passed unanimously. Okay, item 8, council business. The item A has been crossed off. Interviews that were canceled. Item B, Parks Commission appointments. Councilmember Walsh?
I move the following appointments for position 1, Angie Lang as a voting member for a term to expire April 30th, 2027, and position 6, Diana Stone Poor as a voting member for a term to expire April 30, 2026.
And that would be for the Parks Commission.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I move for the Parks Commission, I move the reappointment of Janine Barber as a voting member with a new term.
No, that's the Arts.
Oh, well, that's Arts. Hold on, just a second.
Okay,
here.
so there's been a motion for the Parks. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a motion and a second for Parks Commission appointments. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations to our appointees. The vote was unanimous. All right, now moving on to item C, Arts Commission appointments.
Okay.
Councilmember Walsh.
All right, I was getting ahead of myself there. I move the reappointment of Janine Barber as a voting member with a new term effective January 1, 2025, and expiring December 31, 2027.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations to our new appointees. Those are unanimous as well. And item D, Youth Commission appointments. Councilmember
We
Walsh.
still have one more for.
I do the alternate.
Oh, okay.
Alternate,
Councilmember Walsh, you're right. I see that.
I move the appointment of Cindy Dusich as an alternate member to fill the term expiring December 31, 2026.
Second.
There's motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Cindy Dusich is now an alternate a commission member, so that's great. All right, Youth Commission appointments. Councilmember Walsh.
I move the following appointment for position 8 on the Youth Commission, Ian Lee as a voting member for a term to expire August 31, 2026.
Second.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, vote's unanimous. All right, thank you very much, Councilmember. All right, item 9, ordinances, second reading and enactment. Item A, Council Bill 886, ordinance 2023-2024, that's our current budget, biennial budget amendments. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 886, Ordinance 2023-2024 Biennial Budget Amendment, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Okay. Councilmember Tran?
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, vote is unanimous. Item B, Council Bill 887, Ordinance 2025-2026, Biennial Budget. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 887, Ordinance 2025-2026 Biennial Budget, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to budget and finance adopting the 2025-2026 biennial budget.
All right, Council President Kochmar.
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a couple.
Councilor McDaniel?
Yeah, since this is about the budget, I figured we'd address some of the budget issues. I have two comments and then a question. I'll start with the question. We did roll ARPA funds into the budget as the general fund, but my question is the savings on ARPA fund projects, is that also being rolled in, or will that be coming back to the council to be then reallocated?
Actually, can the cameras hit Steve Groom or?
You want me to go to the podium?
Yeah, would you go to the podium, please, to make sure everybody hears you and it's captured for those folks watching at home or later? And while he's doing that, Councilmember, would you say your question again?
Yeah, my question is on the ARPA money. We did transfer I don't know what the proper terminology for it was, but we've changed color, I guess is one way they phrase it, where the ARPA money became more of a general fund usage. Now, we have ARPA projects that are not completed yet, and sometimes with these ARPA projects, we have a savings where they came in under budget. Beforehand, where that savings was realized, we then had the money come back to the council, and the council was then able to reallocate that to other projects. And after coming back from Florida, I'm sure the council has quite a few projects that are now popping up for
Right.
potential usage of that money.
Right. Do you have that, Steve?
I sure do.
And this is everybody, Steve Groom, our finance director. Steve?
Thank you. The American Rescue Plan Act awarded the city $19.2 million a couple of years ago. And the council moved very cautiously, the mayor and the council moved very cautiously because U.S. Treasury was, they kept changing the rules, and it was wise to kind of hold off until we got the final rules. And what they finally landed on was that the most convenient way for most municipalities to maximize the ARPA grant was to use it for what they called lost revenue. What was eligible to be used for lost revenue was anything that governments normally do had the revenue been there during the pandemic. So that put us on a timeline where we realized once we brought all the projects to council and council methodically approved each of the projects, we realized that we were going to be coming to a deadline of obligating the money, and we didn't want to have projects come in under budget and then the savings had to be remitted back. So what we did is we did a simple swap of maximizing the ARPA project using general fund salaries and benefits, public safety. And then that in turn created savings in the general fund so that we could complete every one of the ARPA projects on a timeline that no longer had that deadline. As you know, the monthly financial report comes to you through FedRec with a list of all of the projects. We do have some of them that have been completed with savings. I believe 3 of them were incorporated into balancing the 2025-26 budget. However, every one of the projects, whether it has savings or is fully spent, it is going to remain under council authority. We're going to bring we bring the list monthly so that we can report back what the savings, and then it can be redeployed with your approval or with your decision-making. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just to clarify, so I know we did approve that some of the savings was going to be utilized for this, but if there's additional savings, then that will actually be coming back for council to make a determination on then, if there is any more savings.
As there were 3 projects that were used, incorporated in the mayor's budget. That was the savings on the police cars, the Sahali Sport Track, and then the 23-24 recruitment retention bonus. We also came back with the mayor's recommendation to use the savings on the ARPA administrative costs for the ADA transition plan, the City Hall elevator, and general fund contingency fund of $200,000.
Okay, understood. I was just making sure that from here on out, that was locked in, no problem. But here on out, any savings will actually be.
It absolutely is. I'm your scorekeeper, and you're holding me accountable.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly.
The second one is actually, I wanted to thank the chief for coming and talk to me the day after our meeting last time. Sometimes our conversations may seem heated because we have difference of opinions or ideas. And I just want to let you know I appreciate you coming in and talk to me and us being able to work it out and stuff. For those people who didn't understand the comments and the decision that was made on that, I asked to add a social worker or classification to the police department because I do not believe the police officers are trained or the most efficient people to handle situations when someone's having a mental crisis or people who are homeless or drug addicted. I felt that the need for somebody else to come in there and step in who's more trained and certified for that was appropriate. And I'll also make the comment, I was not the first vote for it, I was the 4th vote. It is not something I would have agreed upon before I stood up here, but I have told people many times, I come here and I try to have an open mind, and it was through talking to people in the community and people on this council that made me want to push for that movement. I've also reached out, and I know that there's a local chief who has this in play, and I know that we'll probably be working with them, and they've offered to provide us with a running start by actually providing us with the program they have, at least to give us an idea of what can happen with it. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate the people who come together with us and communicate, and that sometimes it takes time to see if things work out, but we're running into a new issue of problems that were not foreseen in the past with the policing department, and safety is the primary, and sometimes new issues require new tools, and I was hoping this is a tool that can go in you guys' toolbox, and hopefully it benefits our society. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other, there has been Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. I just wanted to, there were a couple of us up on the dais who sent emails to the rest of the council about what we wanted to see in the budget, and I've talked about what I had wanted, but I haven't really talked to the public about it, so I just want to say what my email was, what I had asked for, and one was a senior center, a standalone senior center. My dream one day is that we have several small standalone senior centers in Federal Way as we grow larger. I would like to see them in neighborhoods, but I stand in support with the Senior Commission and their comments tonight. I'd like to one day see a teen or youth center. We hear that often from folks who come and talk to us about there's nothing for kids to do on weekends and after 5, and I'd like to see that. The trees along Campus Drive, the mayor and I have talked about that for a long time. I'd like to see that addressed, as the trees are in the way of the flagpoles and the American flag. And one day we will get that taken care of. The chamber, becoming a pivotal partner of the chamber. An ombudsman for the city. I didn't realize that our economic developer is doing that, but that's great because I know people often ask for things at the city, and so now I can refer them to Tanya Carter. Development of an inclusive park, and we are, talking about that. Anyway, those were the things that I had requested. I do agree that some of this can be discussed at our retreat, which is a good place to discuss these things. And my other concern was using the ARPA money to balance the budget. That was one-time money, and I know we don't like to do that. So I'm hoping that that doesn't cause an issue in the future. But those were what I wanted to say about the budget. I look forward to 25 and 26. I think we'll have an exciting time, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I would note that the $15,000 was added for the pivotal partner, and that's included in this second reading. And we'll after this is becoming effective, we'll send that out with our request. And I
don't have to carry this around. This
Exactly.
is really heavy.
That's right.
Once the budget is adopted, we'll create the final adopted budget and post it to the city website.
But I do want to go back. Would you consider this a structurally balanced budget?
Sure.
I mean, I guess the question is, we're not able just to balance this because we have ARPA. We're, moving forward. Could you explain that or highlight that a bit?
As you know, a budget is predicated on forecasted revenue, and you saw in the last year, our real estate excise tax, our REIT, fell quite short. So what did we do? We course corrected. We had a balanced budget. The revenue didn't come in. We adjusted our expenses. We managed to budget, and we'll do the same for the next biennium.
Okay. But real estate excise tax can only be used for capital projects, right?
Correct. Public Works and Parks.
Not the general fund.
That's right. We have been watching sales tax very carefully because it has been coming in lower than prior years. So, and we brought our forecast down. It's still an increase, so we're going to be watching that.
And are all of the reserve funds fully, by council guidelines, fully funded?
Every single fund is projected to end 2026 with the minimum balances for all of the 22 funds that have policy minimums. They are.
Okay. All right. Councilmember W., did you have were you going to?
I was just going to make a comment. We are in a time of question when you look at sales tax and real estate tax and things like that. And we pass the budget, and, you know, in 6 months, if things have changed, we can always make a correction to the east or the west or the south, and make sure we're balanced if something unpredictable comes up.
Yeah, and you well recall.
And I've been through that before, so.
Right.
I know what it's like.
Exactly. Okay, was there anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, any
Oh,
other?
one more thing. I would like to thank you, Mayor. When, I believe our first night of talking about the budget, the police chief presented a wish to have better ballistic vests for the officers. We talked about it. I talked about how I helped my son get a better vest because I want him to come home every night. And within days, you agreed to put that in the budget, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we got, we're so fortunate to have a great staff and a great council that, really, really, I want to say a special thanks to all the council members, and especially, I don't think I've ever seen a council member work as hard at the budget as I saw Councilmember McDaniel. Thank you very much for really digging into it, and exactly. So thank you for embracing this process, and each and every one of you, I've had conversations with you about, your concerns, and several of the items I think that we will have, hope to have conversations at the retreat, whether it's the inclusive park, the flagpoles on Campus Drive, the senior center, and figure out, where we're at right now in regard to budget and long-term finances. Council, any other, I think there's been Brian?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could just add on to your question about is it structurally balanced, the budget? The answer is yes, and by that I mean we have a wish list, as many of you have seen, that's 3 or 4 pages long. And before finalizing this budget, we went through and identified which ones we absolutely could not avoid or are simply obligated to fund. And none of that is with ARPA money. That was with money that we had. So in terms of the structural balance, that answers that question. The ARPA was to then fund the next level of our next dollar items that the mayor and council wanted. So I just want to add that for clarity.
It is an important distinction to make, because when I first got on council, and I think Councilmember Dovey and Councilmember Kochmar may remember, we would be out there with what Councilmember Honda was referring to as one-time funding, which is a little bit out there on a limb in that you are committing to do something down the road, but you don't have ongoing revenue to support it. And that is really a disfavored practice. So I wanted to make sure that while we've been able to fully utilize the 19 million, we've got what they refer to as a structurally balanced budget, because bad things happen if you're not structurally balanced. You have to make drastic short-term cuts. So, all right, any other, there's been a motion and a second for approval. Any other discussion? Councilwoman, are you just getting ready to vote? All right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Well, you have a unanimous budget. Steve, thank you very much for all your work. Thank you very much. And thank you to our management team. Brian, thank you very much. Brian was really, for the past 2 budgets, has really streamlined the way we conduct these. So this is it's the operating budget. 300 and, what's the total, 2 years? It was 350. What is it now?
It's about $200 million each year, and Council Mayor, I want to thank you. On behalf of the entire staff of the city, we can pay them starting in January.
Yeah. We're a $400 million organization when you think about the biennium. That's a lot.
That's right.
So, and we appreciate the input from the public as well. Okay, all right, now let's move to, item C, Council Bill 888, ordinance for 2025 property tax levy. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 888, ordinance 2025 property tax levy, an ordinance of the city of Federal Way, Washington, setting the property tax rate for 2025.
All right, Councilmember Tran?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Stephanie?
Councilmember Safadatsun.
Aye.
Councilmember Honda. Sorry, Councilmember McDaniel.
Nay.
Councilmember Honda.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Welch.
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey.
Aye.
Council President Kochmar.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay. All right, now we're on first reading. Item D, Council Bill 889, ordinance, the condemnation of Redondo Creek at 16th Avenue South and the culvert replacement project. First, we'll have a presentation from Jonathan Strong. Jonathan, have you ever briefed the council before?
No, I have not.
Welcome.
This will be my first.
Exactly. All right. Jonathan, how long have you been with the city?
I've been here about 2 years.
All right.
Let's see.
Welcome to the council meeting.
Exactly. Welcome.
Good to see you.
Hey, it's good being here.
And Jonathan is one of our Public Works civil engineer.
Yes. I've been to a handful of LUTCs, but never the big shebang here. So.
The big shebang. I'm going to use that.
All right. So this is for the Redondo Creek culvert condemnation. The question is, should City Council enact an ordinance authorizing property acquisition through condemnation for the Redondo Creek culvert? This is the portion that we're trying to acquire. So it's on the corner of Redondo Way and 18th Ave. So we sent an offer of $25,509 to not Mbika. This is to Redondo Terrace. That's a typo. For 800 square feet to be bought and 2,640 square feet for a temporary construction easement. The property owners refused offer and has been unresponsive when asked for a counteroffer. We've sent certified mail and legal notices have been published in the paper. Our next steps will be to notify the public one more time at the next council meeting. We will continue to communicate with the property owner. Hopefully, we can reach a negotiated settlement. We will then enact an ordinance and move forward through with condemnation as needed. Our two options are adopt the proposed ordinance or do not adopt the proposed ordinance and provide direction to staff.
Council, any questions of Jonathan? Councilmember Dovey? Oh, okay, I see you. Sorry, I'm a little quick on the draw. When people go for their microphones, I'm quick on the draw. Any questions for Jonathan? Councilmember Honda?
So it's a scary word to use, the words that you used for people who own property. Could you explain why we need to do this?
Yes, so this is for our Redondo Creek culvert project. Basically, we're required through, excuse my ignorance for this project, it's for another engineer, so I'm not fully versed in this. I'm here speaking on his behalf. But this project is to put in a brand-new fish culvert, because a lot of our fish culverts right now are not up to code. They're little tiny 1-footers, and we need to put in these big 4-foots. And to do that, we need to acquire more property that we don't have.
Thank you.
EJ, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so like Jonathan mentioned, we have an existing 18-inch pipe that goes under the road that's failing or failed, depending on which section you're looking at. When we met with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Washington Fish and Wildlife, effectively we have to put in, it's a 16-foot wide box culvert through here to meet the state fish passage requirements. So basically, the little pipe's getting a whole lot bigger for salmon restoration. We have to fix the pipe, and to fix the pipe, we have to comply with the state laws. So to facilitate that, we have to do that. I will point out the area we're talking about is not developable. It is not part of their improvements today, and it cannot be. It's in restricted area. It's in critical areas under our city code. So we are not impacting their future ability to develop this property with this condemnation.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, any other questions? Stephanie, do we have any public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up, Mayor, no.
All right, would you please, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 889, ordinance condemnation of Redondo Creek at 16th Avenue South Culvert Replacement Project. An ordinance of the City of Federal, Washington, providing for the acquisition of certain property for the purpose of constructing right-of-way improvements in the vicinity of Redondo Creek at 16th Avenue South, known as Redondo Creek at 16th Avenue South Culvert Replacement Project, describing the public use and necessity of such property, directing staff to exhaust reasonable negotiation efforts to purchase such property, authorizing the condemnation of the property, directing the city attorney to initiate all necessary actions and proceedings in the manner provided by law for said condemnation if attempts to purchase are not successful, and declaring a statement of urgency.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dovey?
Yes, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. That passes unanimously. All right, and item E, Council Bill 890, ordinance condemnation for the South 288 Street Road Diet Phase 2 project. And again, we have Jonathan Strong with us.
All right. Yes, this is going to be a lot of the same. This is just for our different projects, South 288th Street Road Diet. The question is, shall we enact this ordinance authorizing property acquisition through condemnation for the South 288th Road Diet? This is the parcel right here. It's on the corner of Military and 288th, the northwest corner. We sent an offer of $14,600 for 449 square feet to be bought and 33 square feet for a temporary construction easement. The property owner has refused the offer and has not been responsive when asked about a counter offer. We've sent certified mail and legal notice has been published in the paper. We will notify the public one more time next council meeting. We will continue to communicate with the property owner, hopefully to reach a negotiated settlement. We will then enact the ordinance and move through with condemnation as needed. Our two options are to adopt the proposed ordinance or to not adopt the proposed ordinance and provide direction to staff.
All right. Council, any questions for Jonathan?
I got one quick one.
Absolutely. Councilmember?
What is the project for that we're going to be acquiring this land for?
Yeah, so this project is, we are reducing the lanes on 288th from 4 to 3 to provide safety because we've had multiple accidents and multiple fatalities on that road. So we're changing it so that it's a two-way turn lane and 2 lanes that go in each direction, and then 2 bike lanes as well. The reason why we're acquiring property at Military and 288th is because in the future, for the ultimate arrangement, this may be 10, 20 years from now, we will eventually go to a 5-lane road, I believe, for that intersection. And since we're already here, we might as well acquire the property for some of the corners.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, do we have any public comment, Stephanie?
No, Mayor, I don't have anyone signed up.
All right, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 890, ordinance condemnation for South 288th Street Road Diet Phase 2 project. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, providing for the acquisition of certain property for the purpose of constructing right-of-way of improvements in the vicinity of South 288th Street from Pacific Highway South to Military Road South, known as the South 288th Street Road Diet Phase 2 project, describing the public use and necessity of such property, directing staff to exhaust reasonable negotiation efforts to purchase such property, providing for the condemnation of the property, and directing the city attorney to initiate all necessary actions and proceedings in the manner provided by law for said condemnation if attempts to purchase are not successful.
All right. And, 1 second. Councilmember W., do you have a motion?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. Thank you, Jonathan. Great job. All right, and welcome to the big shebang. Cole, before we get started with that, is John in the room? EJ, are you able, I think I received some communication. Are we on generator now or not?
So no, so we flipped over to generator and we're actually back on utility power in City Hall right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I think we were off of channel 21 for about 30 minutes, according to
Very good,
the
okay.
report that I got. But
Very good.
Been back on.
Okay, great.
Mayor, when we're done with our meeting tonight, or before we're done, could we get a report from Kevin on any outages? I know
Absolutely.
that there were a few in Federal Way, but now the map is showing 0 in Federal Way.
No, we've got about, actually, I just received Cole, do you mind if we just, 1 second? EJ, you had sent me an email on an update. Can you update the public and the council right now about where we're at with power?
Yeah, so PSC reported to us 2 outages. Each outage is affecting about 1,000 customers. One was 320th, I'm trying to pull it up real fast while I'm talking. One was 320th and 10th Avenue South is the center point, and the second is 20th Avenue South and 330th Street. Both of them are impacting mostly businesses and residents. The first one does have a couple traffic signals impacted by it. PSC is working on assessing the damage and figuring out where exactly we can shut off power to get it restored right now. There's also some major power outages, specifically in Enumclaw and Maple Valley, that have substantially higher numbers of out customers right now. The Enumclaw one also involves the hospital, so those are kind of a little prioritized above us right now. So they're on a generator. They're doing okay, but they shouldn't cause panic here. But there's a lot of outages across the Puget Sound right now that they're focused on.
All right, well, thank you for that update, and thank you, Councilmember, for the suggestion. And Director Walsh, I want to just give you an open invitation. If anything changes over the evening, please feel free to let me know, and we'll just make sure we're being televised right now, so it's helpful to everybody.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, do you have any additional information? All right. Okay, now we are on item F. And item F is Council Bill 891 for first reading ordinance, the Ziply Fiber Pacific Franchise Ordinance. First, we'll have a presentation from Cole Elliott, our Development Services Manager, and then we'll move forward from there. Cole?
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, members of the council. As the mayor said, I'm Cole Elliott. I am the Development Services Manager. I come before you tonight with the policy question of, should the city grant a Ziply Fiber a franchise ordinance to place telecommunications and related appurtenances within the city's right-of-way? Ziply Fiber requested a franchise from the city in order to place fiber optic and appurtenances. The term of the franchise is for 10 years, which is standard, and is consistent with all of the other franchises that we have been granting. Options to consider are recommend the adoption and go forward with first reading, do not adopt the proposed ordinance, and provide direction to the staff. The recommendations from both the mayor and Land Use and Transportation Committee was to forward this on for this reading.
All right.
Questions?
Thank you, Cole. Any questions for Cole, Council? All right, thank you. If you could just be on standby here for a moment. Do we have any public comment for this?
No, Mayor, I don't have anyone signed up.
All right, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 891, Ordinance Ziply Fiber Pacific Franchise Ordinance, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, granting Ziply Fiber Pacific LLC a non-exclusive franchise to occupy rights-of-way of the City of Federal Way, Washington within the specified franchise area for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, operating, replacing, and repairing a telecommunications network within and throughout the City of Federal Way.
All right, Councilmember Dovey, you have a motion?
You bet. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Cole, thank you very much. All right, item G, Council Bill 892, Ordinance Permanent Supportive Housing and Transitional Housing Code Amendments. Becky Chapin, our Senior Planner, will provide the presentation.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, and City Council members. I'm Senior Planner Becky Chapin, and I'll be presenting the proposed code amendments for permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. So the policy question is, should the City Council adopt the proposed text amendments to Federal Revised Code Title 19 relating to permanent supportive housing and transitional housing? The GMA, the Growth Management Act, was amended by House Bill 1220, requiring cities to adopt a comprehensive plan, including a housing element that identifies sufficient land capacities for all housing needs, and this includes permanent supportive housing. Back in 2021, the city code was amended to initially add to the permanent supportive housing in our code, and there was a required separation as well during that time, and which is in the code today. However, at the time the initial adoption of the allocated number of permanent supportive housing that the city was obligated to meet was not yet established. So at that time, it was stated that we would reevaluate the code when the city actually got the allocated number. So now the state has provided the city with a specific number of required units that we must plan for, and the amendment of the existing regulations and development codes must be amended to make sure we have enough capacity to meet the allocated need today. The comprehensive plan and development regulations must be compliant with the GMA when they are adopted or amended through the periodic update process, which is scheduled to be adopted next month, so in December. So that's why we're looking at this today. The city is required to provide housing options for the entire population of the city. This graph shows the number of units the city has to plan for by 2024. And the gray bar there is the permanent supportive housing units that we're providing. So the King County countywide planning policies allocated 946 units of permanent supportive housing to the city. Based on the existing development regulations and zoning codes applicable to permanent supportive housing, there's only capacity for 388 units. So the city has a land capacity, so the city's land capacity analysis identifies a deficit of 558 units. The existing development regulations and zoning codes that we have today that were adopted in 2021 show that permanent supportive housing is allowed in the following zones: suburban estate, single-family residential, multifamily residential, neighborhood business, community business, city center core, city center frame, and commercial enterprise. And then in each of those zones where PSH projects are allowed, there's a distancing requirement of 1 1/3 miles or 7,040 feet. This is between projects with 3 or more units. The existing unit capacity of each zone is shown here, and it does vary by zone to what the capacity is allowed. And then to reiterate, what is shown here, the current zoning and development regulations that we have in code today only allows for a capacity of 388 units. So the first part of this proposed code amendment is to reduce the distancing between permanent supportive housing projects to 5,400 feet. An example of this distancing requirement is from City Hall to Trouvé, which is the apartments on 1st and 348th. So that shows how far the distancing is. And then the second part of the amendment is to increase the unit capacities in the certain zones. Like the city center core, we're looking to go to 200 units. City center frame and CE is 150 units. The BC, BN, and RM is 100 units. There won't be any changes in the SE zone or the single-family residential. So these are some pictures of what those type of housing units could look like in those different unit capacities. So with the decreased horizontal separation that we're proposing and the increased unit capacities, we get closest to the number of allocated units of 946 units. And this amount of units the city needs to, this is the amount of units the city has to plan for, and it doesn't mean that these units will be built in the city. Currently, we have 3 existing projects which are shown here in the red, and one of those projects is the Health Through Housing, which is still under construction, so it's not built yet, but those are the 3 that we currently have in the city right now. And based on this map and what this is showing us, the proposed code amendment would provide around 956 units of PSH housing. And then, so this is an example of an existing use zone chart for the city center core. The proposed changes would be in the special regulations and notes, items 1 and 2 in all the zones where PSH are allowed, and it's shown here in strikeout and underlines. So this was then the adoption process. We went to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on October 2nd. LUTC was November 4th. Today is the first reading, and hopefully in December 3rd would be our second reading and enactment. This is the criteria development regulations for amendment to development regulations. I'm not going to go over all the different criteria here, but it's in the staff report, and the staff report identifies that we meet all the criteria. The recommendation from Planning Commission was to forward the proposed code amendments to City Council without a recommendation. LUCC recommended forwarding the proposed code amendments to City Council for adoption. And today your options are to adopt the proposed ordinance and do not adopt the proposed ordinance. And the mayor recommends option 1.
All right, thanks, Becky. Any questions for Becky?
I got a couple.
Councilmember McDaniel?
My question is going to be on some definitions. So underneath the supportive housing, hotels can be purchased and converted into this. I assume motels can also be purchased and converted into this. What about, does it have to be independent units, or can people use houses that have separate units on the property or separate bedrooms? Does it have to be units?
Yeah, so the definition is for dwelling units, and those are independent living facilities, but that could include like a separate kitchen area or some separate area like that. Most of the houses, like there are a few units in different housing that's around, but it would be a single-family house would be 1 unit, is my understanding. Like duplex would be then 2 units and things like that. So it would be independent living facilities.
Okay, so just one last question would be, so a single-family house that has 6 DADUs would classify for 7 different units?
Yeah, you're saying if they have detached dwellings?
Detached, yeah.
If they're independent, if they're considered a dwelling unit, then they would be allowed, they could use it for permanent supportive housing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, council, any other questions? All right, do we have any public comment for this?
Yes, Mayor, I'm sending them down.
I'm sorry?
Yes, 2.
Oh, sending them down, okay, sorry. Okay. We've got Dara Mendeville and Anna Patrick.
Shocker, right? I know. I was just jotting down some things. So a few questions. I understand the 956 units, and I know we've all talked this to death. Is there any way that we can limit each unit? Because if they're saying we have to have 956 units, but do we have to have 956 houses with 6 bedrooms? Or can we have 956 one-bedroom apartments? Like, is there a way to control that? Is the extended stay included in that number? Do we know?
Good question, okay.
Okay.
So ask all your questions and we'll make sure Becky
perfect.
and Keith and legal are gonna be here.
And I'm asking the council and the mayor and the staff to please put thoughtful zoning considerations into this. Again, I know we've beat this to death it seems like for years. Low barrier housing by school. We've all seen our downtown corridor, and thank God most of it stays in that area. Sorry, businesses, but school kids don't need to be around what we see at Rite Aid and stuff. So if we could put some thought into that. I know everybody has rights, but, and then there's a loophole in it. I know when a few of us were reading all of the proposal, for 3 or fewer units, there's no spacing requirements, so we could essentially just have a neighborhood of triplexes. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's get both public comments in and then we'll answer the questions. And Becky, did you capture those questions? Okay, all right, now Anna Patrick.
Hello again. I'm just going to read what I have. The proposed zoning allows low-barrier housing, including near schools, and does not require spacing between permanent supportive housing with 3 or few units, as far as I understand. This could result in clusters of triplex permanent supportive housing, as mentioned by Dara, in neighborhoods without homeowners associations, if you combine it with House Bill 1110. And potentially increasing crime and overburdening city resources. Additionally, permanent supportive housing properties are often tax exempt, reducing city funds that would otherwise support necessary services for high-need residents. Many permanent supportive housing zones also lack sidewalks and parking, which limits access to police, fire, and emergency services. These neighborhoods are getting very crowded with traffic. Locating permanent supportive housing on main streets near bus lines could improve service access. Some proposed zoning would allow large projects up to 200 units. Concentrating high-need populations in these large developments raises safety concerns, particularly as safety providers in any facilities might avoid calling the police for incidents, relying instead on critical incident responders who address issues internally. This practice means many crimes, including those involving weapons or violent assaults, are not always officially reported, which can artificially reduce crime stats and obscure the true impact on community safety until reaching crisis levels. Federal Way, as fifth largest city, has received a substantial permanent supportive housing zoning target compared to neighboring cities just right over the border, risking overconcentration and stigma, which is exactly what they said they were avoiding with the bill, but is actually going to exacerbate. While the city must zone for 947 or 942 permanent supportive housing units as required by King County, it is not required to provide this housing directly. However, thoughtful zoning is essential to balance the needs of permanent supportive housing residents with the well-being and safety of the broader community, ensuring accessible and appropriately supported housing. So I know this might require us to go back to the drawing board, but please consider being extra thoughtful on those key issues. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Becky, would you like to address, I think Ms. Patrick's comment were mainly suggestions of council, but as to the questions by Ms. Mandeville.
Yeah, so the one about the extended stay, that's the Health Through Housing project that we are currently under construction. So that one has gotten approval, and it's currently, that is up in, that's the King County Health Through Housing.
But to the question, Becky, it's not occupied at this time, so it's technically zero. So it will meet some of our 946 when it's occupied.
Okay, I think that was part of the question.
Yeah.
Okay, and there were some other questions in there. Did you get?
It's about the under 3 units and those, so it's anything 3 and more requires the separation. So if you can do it, it would still require a land use review. Like right now, we have Fusion coming in with a duplex that's transitional housing, and that is going through a land use review process. So there's still some review that we will do with them, but they would be allowed without that separation.
Becky, is that the one on 13th that had the big ground breaking? Okay.
Yep.
That's like 312th and 13th, I think.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that one is coming in for their land use review.
It's just it's a 2 duplex. It's like, there was an old structure, there's like a foundation there, and they're building on that now?
My understanding is they demolished the existing house.
Yeah, okay.
And so that they'll start from scratch with the duplex.
Okay, all right. Okay, Dara, did we get all your questions answered?
I think there was one other question, Mayor. There was one about separation from schools.
Yes.
And, and we, both the 3 and less units and whether they should come under the separation and whether we should apply a separation to schools was discussed when we initially adopted these code amendments back in 2021. And so part of the rationale is emergency housing, which is housing for people that are homeless, which is the Red Lion, that type of housing should have a separation from schools because it's completely transitionary. It's transient housing. It's for people that are, in theory, going to be there for a short period of time. Permanent supportive housing, as the name implies, is potentially permanent. So if you are someone that has a low-paying job that makes you 30% or less of AMI, but you have a kid, that kid needs to go to a school, and you may or may not have your own private transportation to take that kid to school. So having that separation for permanent supportive housing to schools is really kind of antithetical for what we should be doing, which is making it easier for those people at that level of income to get their kids to school on time. So That was part of a very quick summary of why we did not include that with permanent supportive housing.
All right, thank you very much. Was there any more public comment? Stephanie?
No, Mayor, I don't have anyone else signed up.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, and would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 892, Ordinance Permanent Supportive Housing and Transitional Housing Code Amendments. An ordinance of the City of Federal, Washington relating to permanent supportive housing and transitional housing, amending Federal Revised Code 19-195-015, 19-200-045, 19-215-070, 19-220-100, 19-225-075, 19-230-065, and 19-240-085.
All right, and Councilmember Dovey, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
All right, there's been a motion, a second. And is there any further discussion? Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, the question, I mean, with this thing with the 3 units, not having the separation, would it be possible to have it so that, just a small revision where if there's multiple 3 units, I'm not quite sure how to state this. Say if there's more than 2 triplexes, so to speak, within that area, that would fall under the more than 3 units category?
All right,
Does that make sense?
Becky?
Yeah, Keith. It makes sense, I just don't.
So I think if the council is interested in putting any more limitations by separation or cap, we're not going to meet our planning requirement, which makes this very problematic. So, we've had that 3-unit non-separation requirement in code for 3 years, or 2 or 3 years, and it has not caused a problem so far. And I guess what I would say is, first off, these things aren't being built. I think since we adopted the code initially, Fusion's maybe put 2 or 3 units into play in Federal Way since then. So they're not coming at like gangbusters. If we see a problem develop, we can always go back and amend the code then. I think the thought was that having such a few number of units, and they're typically part of like a condominium complex, that there might be like 2 or 3 units in a 40-unit condominium complex. They're really not, you really can't tell that they're there. And so I think, again, I think that it's been working. I don't think it's worth adding additional protections. And also, I think we'd have to go back and reanalyze whether we can make our planning goal or not.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dovey?
Yeah, if I could make a comment. After attending last week's National League of Cities, my perception of what this housing stock really is, it opened my eyes to different things. I mean, we're talking about senior citizens potentially that are 65 years old that are priced out of their shag housing because they aren't fixed income and they don't have the ability to stay in their home and they go in their car. And this becomes a lifeline to them to be in subsidized AMI, lower AMI housing. So the perception from my standpoint has always been what we talk about as homeless, the picture of what that is in Seattle and even in Federal Way on the streets. But a lot of times this is really a next door neighbor to somebody that lives anywhere in Federal Way that can't keep going the way things are. So I think there's a lot more stability and a different type of stereotype of who might be in these homes. So, like I say, I wouldn't have said that a month ago, but I do believe that this is a good move for us to start moving ahead and provide for more people that can use this type of housing.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Tran?
No, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Councilmember, I know, I'm ready to go if your light's on. Councilor McDaniel?
Just real quick, when we're talking about the no space between the three, we're just talking triplex design, right? Where the walls are connected to each other? Is that the definition of the description?
No, it could be, the reason why this is in our code is specifically because of Fusion. So, and Fusion has, in different places in Federal Way, 2 or 3 condominiums that they've purchased within a complex. They're not necessarily all adjacent to each other. They're just ones that were on the market that they could acquire. So what the code recognizes that if there are a few, and we kind of capped it at 3, units within a particular project as a whole, that would be okay.
So it's not actually standalone buildings. It could be units all over a 200-unit building, but if they're all in the same building, that's 3 connected units?
It's defined by project. So like, you know, if there was a condominium project and it was 3 in a row, or one at the northwest corner, one at the northeast corner, and one at the southeast corner, either way, that's 3 in that project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a little bit difference.
And if they wanted a 4th one, then they have a problem.
So they, gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense on that one then. And then, what Councilman Odoe was talking about, yeah, we learned a lot in Florida about who really becomes in this population. And one of the reasons why I voted no on the property tax is we had emails coming in where the increase in property tax is 10% of some of these people's, fixed income, and they own the house outright. So, someone who probably bought the house for $50,000 or $60,000 is now worth $600,000. They're still paying property tax on it, and pretty soon there'll be the people probably moving into these. So I agree with you completely on that one.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Suffolk Dawson? All right. All right. 1 second. All right, there's been a motion and a second, and we've had a discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. Becky, great job. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're on item H, Council Bill 893, Ordinance Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments. First, we'll have a presentation by Evan Lewis, Senior Planner, and we'll go from there.
All right, good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, and other council members present. This is the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments, and there were 2 accepted to this year's docket. One was the Flowers Property Rezone, and the other is the Commons Property Comp Plan Amendments pertaining to the Commons Mall property. The policy question is, should City Council adopt the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments? We'll start with the Flowers Property Rezone. This is a rezone of a 0.9 acre parcel on the southwest corner of South 308th Street and 14th Avenue South. And the rezone would be from RM 1800, residential multifamily 1800, to professional office, or PO, for the purpose of facilitating a daycare that's been approved for the site to allow more than 50 children, since right now the zoning caps it at 50 children. And since that rezone would be inconsistent with the current comprehensive plan, it would also require a comprehensive plan amendment to a designation that would be created on the next agenda item, which is a new commercial land use designation for the property. Surrounding uses are Federal Way High School to the north, medical office to the south, Bellbridge townhouses and condominiums to the east, and Lake Easter Estates condominiums to the west. Just some relevant background, from 1990 to 2013, so from the city's incorporation until 2013, the zoning and comprehensive plan designation of the site was office. It was rezoned in 2013 with the anticipation of a multifamily proposal on the site that never moved forward. And there have been no subsequent multifamily proposals or even pre-application requests for multifamily on that property. And that rezone created a nonconformity with the existing office building on the site. And in 2024, a daycare was approved on the site, and its building permit was issued in June 2024, and there was a certificate of occupancy issued in September. There are 4 long sets of factors and criteria that are required to be reviewed for rezones. I won't read all of those, they're all in the staff report. So we'll go to the next one, which is the Commons Property Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And these are map and text amendments to the motorized and non-motorized transportation network on the Commons Mall property, as well as text amendments that are consistent with all of the map amendments. And the applicant, there were several iterations of the applicant's request over the course of the last year. And in the end, the applicant's request was fully consistent with updates that were made to our comp plan as part of the periodic update. So just to go over what were the components of the applicant's request. The first was to replace a future minor collector ring road that is currently depicted on the Commons Mall site in the comprehensive plan with a north-south principal collector road through the site. So the map shown here is what's now depicted in the updated comprehensive plan that's in the next item on the agenda. The next was to ensure that street cross-sections and standards will be addressed in city code and city code and city standards, such as public works standards, as opposed to in the comprehensive plan. Right now, street cross-sections are in the comprehensive plan. Those have been taken out of the comprehensive plan. Next was to clarify that roads on the site can be either public or private so long as they're open to the public. The next was to ensure flexibility in the implementation of planned roads, and also to ensure references to streets and pedestrian improvements provide sufficient flexibility for site redevelopment. So instead of naming roads strictly planned roads, it's planned or potential roads. So again, there are several factors to be considered and criteria that has to be addressed. That's all outlined in the staff report. I do want to highlight one correction in the version that is in your packet. It was found there was one east-west planned or potential road that was in the LUTC packet that for unknown reasons is not showing up in the council packet before you. And that is a east-west road that runs roughly from where Town Square Park south of the transit center. So for whatever reason, it's not showing up in your council packet, whereas it was as intended in the LUTC packet. And this is the correction that will be made in the second read packet. By all appearances, after close scrutiny, that was the only oddity that appeared on that map. So that will be corrected in the December 3rd packet. So the adoption process was docketed on February 20th, SEPA determination on July 12th, public hearing for Planning Commission on September 4th. Went to LUTC and was recommended for approval, and after first read would go to adoption December 3rd. And there were no public comments received on these proposals. And the options are before you and in your packet, and the mayor's recommendation is option 1 to forward the proposed ordinance to second reading on December 3rd.
All right. Thank you, Evan. Any questions for Evan, council? All right. Stephanie, do we have any public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up, Mayor, no.
All right. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 893, Ordinance Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments. An ordinance of the City of Federal, Washington, amending the Federal Comprehensive Plan, the Comprehensive Plan Map and Zoning Map, changing the Comprehensive Plan designation and zoning of a .9-acre parcel of land located on the southwest corner of South 308th Street and 14th Avenue South, and amending maps and text in the transportation and centers chapters of the Federal Comprehensive Plan pertaining to an approximately 61-acre site bounded by Pacific Highway South to the west, South 320th Street to the north, 23rd Avenue South to the east, and South 324th South Street to the south.
All right. Councilmember Dovey?
Mayor, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting and second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Evan. Great job. Okay, now, item I, Council Bill 894, Ordinance Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update. We'll hear from the director himself here at the Big Shebang. Keith Niven, our Community Development Director.
You know, the big shebang was already taken, so like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to find something else.
EJ, you gotta tell Jonathan we're gonna use that.
Will do.
All right.
What's your PowerPoint? It's comp plan. It was on the desktop. If I was just trying to minimize to get there. No, not that one. Sorry.
And Kobe, great job tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. Okay.
While they're doing this, EJ, do we have any updates about power?
I was just looking at it. PSC is reporting 2,000 outages in King County with 277,000 customers out. So it's pretty extensive. Beyond that, no.
Okay, thank you.
I got a text from PSC before the meeting started that my power was out, so I'm going to stay here for a long time. 'Cause no reason to go home, actually.
All right, we're fixing on getting through this agenda here pretty quick, so.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President Kochmar, and City Council members. Keith Niven, Community Development Director. And even though I get to make the presentation tonight, I want to give a very special thanks to some of the key staff that helped get us here this evening. So thank you, Evan. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Chris Greer, for Community Services. Thank you for EJ for all the Public Works comments and specifically to the transportation staff. It's been a team effort and it's been 3 years of work, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in now. So the policy question in front of the City Council is, should the city adopt the comprehensive plan update as presented this evening? So the comprehensive plans are the centerpiece of local planning efforts. These 20-year plans articulate a community vision through a series of goals, policies, and actions that guide decisions of elected officials and staff. Counties and cities planning under the Growth Management Act are required to complete periodic updates to their comprehensive plans and development regulations. So this is a map from the Department of Commerce webpage, which shows the timing for those comprehensive plan updates. As you can see from the map, Snohomish County, King County, Pierce County, and Kitsap County are all due by the end of next month. And it's coming quickly. The rest of the state have different deadlines, but those cities and counties that are in the gold color are due soon, which includes us. So we talk about planning consistency under the Growth Management Act, and that means a lot of things, but I tried to represent it with this diagram. So the City of Federal Way's comprehensive plan is represented by the gray bubble. Our comprehensive plan is required to be consistent with Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050 and with the King County countywide planning policies. So you'll hear a lot about us trying to maintain our consistency with those other regional documents. And then the green bubble out on the right represents the 2 annual comp plan amendments which Evan presented prior to this. And so not only do we need to be consistent with these other regional documents, but every time we do an annual amendment, it needs to be consistent with the rest of the comprehensive plan. All right, so public engagement. Public engagement, we had over 20 meetings with community groups, including Kiwanis, Lions Club, Rotary, El Centro de la Raza, Pacific Islanders, the school district, Bonsai Museum, Senior Center, Historical Society, Bethel Baptist Church, Calvary Lutheran Church, and then there are others, but I could only fit so many on this slide. We had 4 citywide open houses, 20 tabling events, 9 surveys. We purchased an engagement software platform, which we titled EngageFW.com. And we have more than 15,000 website visits and 1,800 contributions over this kind of community public engagement process. We had 5 task force. We had a mayor ad hoc committee, downtown committee, comp plan committee. There was a South Station stakeholder group. There was a City Hall advisory committee, Southwest King County Trails Plan Steering Committee, and then city briefings. We went to Land Use and Transportation Committee quarterly, and we went to the Arts Commission, Senior Commission, Planning Commission, Diversity Commission, Human Services Commission, Youth Commission, and Parks Commission. If we missed anybody, I'm sorry. So what is new? We have new chapters. We came to the City Council in November of 2021 and said, we think we should have some new chapters in our comprehensive plan. We think we should have a chapter on climate and resiliency, a chapter on arts, culture, and historic preservation, a chapter on centers, a new chapter on parks and recreation. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Is John here? Oh, good. Park staff also. Sorry, I forgot them earlier. And then implementation. One of the biggest changes of our comprehensive plan with this update is including an implementation chapter. And that is to make sure, hey, John, you guys were influential as well, so sorry. Was to include an implementation chapter where we can actually track our progress to implementing the comprehensive plan. So the chapters we removed, we used to have a chapter on Twin Lakes and the city center, and those are sub-area plans, just like the sub-area plan we just adopted for the South Station area. And we're going to put those on, and you can see there's actually, this is a little excerpt from the city's planning webpage. So if you ever want to read those documents, they're located on the city's webpage under planning, long range. Or actually special projects. Either way, we're still kind of working on that. And then the annexation areas, we actually collapsed that into the land use chapter. A lot of the stuff relating to our annexation areas is outdated and needs to be updated, but the policies related to land use and how that should come in, we migrated those into the land use chapter. And the other chapters have been updated with new data and to be consistent with Vision 2050 and the countywide planning policies. So the key points, the update covers 2024 to 2044. We are planning for approximately 11,260 new housing units and 20,460 new jobs. Planning for housing at all income ranges. This is this wonderful bar chart you guys have seen a million times. Becky showed it earlier with permanent supportive housing, which shows numbers at each one of those income ranges. We simplified our land use chapter. We removed the zoning map from the comprehensive plan. We updated traffic modeling and capital projects list, and we added content, goals, and policies supporting equity and diversity. There was, as Vivian brought up earlier, there is one area of rezoning that we're suggesting and a change of designation from commercial to, or from multifamily to commercial. And it is the area that is currently Christian Faith Center. So this is the Christian Faith Center site, and then there's some parcels to the south of it that are either businesses or homes. And this is property that Sound Transit has identified that they are planning to purchase for their operation and maintenance yard south. And that is why we're suggesting this property be rezoned from multifamily to commercial. As I mentioned earlier during public comment, this gives us better leverage when their site plan comes in to help this be a more compatible land use with some of the housing on the north side of 336 primarily. So we have provided detailed presentations at the Planning Commission on September 4th and September 18th, and at Land Use and Transportation Committee on October 7th and November 4th. We have two changes that we're initiating following the LUTC discussion. One was in Chapter 6, Capital Facilities. We had an approximate date for a new city hall identified as 2030, and we discussed that, and that was pretty aggressive. So, we changed that number to 2040, which is probably a little bit more realistic for us. Gives us some time to have those conversations. And then in Chapter 9 Utilities, we pretty much, this was just an update based on changes in companies. We got rid of Sprint and Dish and Direct Wireless. Those companies are no longer, I think, in existence. And as you heard this evening, we're adding a franchise for Ziply Fiber, so we're adding that. And then Comcast was not identified as a wireless telecommunications provider, and obviously they are. So these are the same factors to amend the comprehensive plan that Evan identified in the annual amendments. These are addressed in the staff report. Criteria for comprehensive plan amendment, again, addressed in the staff report. Recommendation from the Planning Commission from September 18th is approval. Recommendation from Land Use and Transportation Committee on November 4th is also for approval. The mayor's recommendation is also for approval to adopt the proposed ordinance. And with that, I am here for any questions.
All right, Councilor McDaniel.
First, I'd like to say, hey, thank you for all the emails and responses and back and forth communications. Like I said earlier today, my comments are not about the quality of the work you guys did. It's just history reflects what I believe to be a factual accuracy. I have a few different items that I have for consideration to talk to the council about. I'm not sure how much of the council is interested in what I have to say, but I'm here to say it, since this is be once in 20 years that this thing will get done, and maybe reviewed in 10. Some of the things that I have questions on were brought up earlier by members of the Diversity Commission. I wish they would have stayed, because we do have public comment, and they could have maybe responded to some of the questions I have. The first one I'm going to start with is actually in the introduction to it, and it is the word equity. And equity, to me, is a difficult word to understand. I have been given multiple definitions. Some of them are actually pretty useful, other ones not to be as useful as I'd like. And I understand that we are trying to move to the concept of equality, meaning everybody is treated the same exact way regardless of differences and specific needs, and moving into a terminology of equity, meaning everyone is provided a specific resource they need to be successful. Now, that definition I can accept a little bit easier than what I see sometimes in the book. And the thing that I have a problem with the equity in the book is that it says outcomes. And I do not believe that outcomes is something that should be controlled or manipulated by anything other than merit. I understand that we have groups who want to see the same numbers across the board. And it's never going to be realistic. You're never going to have equal across the board on anything. And I feel when we say that we want to have equality and that equality includes outcomes, that would be like saying that we're going to give a homeless person a house they cannot afford. And I've seen other cities, Detroit being a prime example, where they lowered the barriers to get people into houses, and 5 to 10 years later, they lost the houses, and they now have a bankruptcy, their credit's damaged, because you tried to do something that was not, was in my belief to be not right. One of the descriptions given to me was equality is to give everyone the same pairs of shoes. Equity is to give everyone a pair of shoes that fits. And again, my comment on my issue with that one is give. There's no reward. There's no working for it. There's no actually, you went out there, you busted your butt, you earned what you get. And I've noticed that in my life at least, and maybe I just speak from my own personal opinion, is I don't respect things I don't earn. Maybe when I was younger and people gave me something, I appreciated having that given to me. But until I actually earned it and realized how that hard work allowed me to qualify for that one, I believe in helping out. I believe in hand-ups, but not handouts. And so my issue with the term of equity at the moment is not the definition that has been given to me as much as the fact that we have the word outcomes. And that is something that I'd actually like to take into consideration with the council. And I do have 3 different areas, but I would like to, if I have changes I'd like to make motions on them. So I'd like to pause at that one and let you know what my thoughts are. The motion I'd like to make would be, I'm not going to make it yet because I'd like to have feedback from the council. The motion I'd like to make is to remove the term outcome. Right now it reads, equity exists where all people share rights, access, choice, opportunities, and outcomes regardless of characteristics such as race, economic class, social abilities, or gender. The only request I have is to remove the word outcomes, because I do not believe that's something that we should be playing in. We should be able to, like I said, help when needed, but trying to say that outcomes is something that we can manipulate or control means you push one down to bring one up. I mean, that's, again, a personal opinion, but not personal opinion, but that's my belief on that one. So before I move on to my next one, I'd rather see if the council has appetite to listen to that one, or if they'd like me to move on to something else.
Council, any feedback to provide the council member or the public about the discussion in the plan about outcomes? Councilmember Seppa Dawson?
Yeah, I don't think I agree with you around outcomes, but I still don't understand. I don't understand how you're seeing it, because to me an outcome is something that we achieved to accomplish, and this is the outcome we want, either for people, for whatever we're doing. So what part of outcome then are you?
Who are you to say who wins, who loses?
That's not an outcome, though.
That's an outcome.
But this outcome I don't think is about losers and winners. It's about having equity so that there's this outcome, meaning whatever that outcome is, in terms of pulling people up or?
So housing's,
So I-
housing's the main one that equity is being used in this
Yeah.
description. So housing would be getting everybody into a house.
Not
to own.
necessarily, what kind of house though? See, so that's still an outcome. So if I need permanent supportive housing, that's an outcome that you have placed 16 people in permanent housing. That's an outcome. And then if you are ready for home ownership, then we provide X number. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is how I understand it. So here's the outcome that X number of people would be homeowners. This number of people would have renter property, whatever. So the outcome is really not necessarily everybody being a homeowner or homeowners, but it means that there's these different levels of outcomes that we want to see happen.
So maybe this will help, maybe not.
Yeah.
I think I gave you the shoes example, so
Yes.
I don't know if that was a good one or not. But
I-
so
yeah.
let's
It's a good one.
let's use the city's housing repair program that we fund through CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, right? And equality is we provide that opportunity for people to apply for home repair in English only, right? Because that's just the way it is. That's what we do. Equity means we're maybe providing that opportunity in multi-languages or in ways for people to access it that otherwise couldn't because the way we used to do it didn't work for them. And so I think for me, it's the services that we provide, it's the things that we do, making sure that it is as equitable as possible for our community, which is a very diverse thing. That's what it means for me.
Okay.
Okay, I see Councilman Mordovi's lights on.
Yeah, I guess a comment, we're talking about a word outcome, and it is apparent in the council members' talk, it means two different things. And I wouldn't want to change it tonight on our first reading, but I think we have 2 weeks to kind of think about it. And maybe there's something a word that will work. I'm not sure that changing it to, all the work we've put into this, and I appreciate Councilmember McDaniel bringing it up and talking about it, but to just make a change now because it has come up, I think we need to sit on that a little bit and think it through. It's not going to make a difference if the word is outcome or whatever it is tonight, but it will in 2 weeks when we vote the final second reading. And it just gives us a little time for each of the 7 to consider what that means.
Okay. Councilmember?
Yeah. Then I'll move on to the next one then. The next section I'm going to talk about is housing. So the housing sections that I had questions or comments about has to do with some terminology on it. And let me give some background story before I go into this one. I mentioned this to somebody earlier today. When I went to Federal High School as a junior, I got in an argument with my dad. And the argument was about internment camps. I told him they didn't exist because my Pacific Northwest history book, they said nothing about internment camps. So this is before internet days or the beginning of billboards and stuff like that, so it was way before you could just Google stuff. I looked everywhere until I finally found the truth, and it was not in my textbook. And at that point in time, I realized that those who win write the history. And they don't write history they don't want people to see. So when we write this book, this is our history moving forward. Whoever reads this believes it's true. So with that preference, the problems I have in the housing is where we have information that says past discriminatory housing and land use practices. Now, we were just in Florida where they had a lot of discriminatory stuff. They had discriminatory between even internal groups. The Cubans separated from the Afro-Cubans because they couldn't accept each other in their groups. So there is actually parts of this country who have a very long history of racial and prejudiced policies and procedures and rules that are written into their code. My comment when I wrote this back and read through this was, could you please provide me the examples of past discriminatory housing and land use practices? And this is after we just talked about a black man in the, want to say, the late 1900s owning a piece of property in Fedge Way. I believe the Connor family was actually in here in the late 1800s, late 19th century. So 1800s, 1900s. So that right there gives me a lot of hope that this city did not have the same kind of issues. But in this document right here, it makes the comment showing Fedge Way is becoming increasingly diverse, but past discriminating housing and land use practices have led to current inaccuracies, outcomes in housing. Outcomes in housing. Again, the word outcome is shown in here. So what I'll probably do is, actually, I will not make a motion tonight. I will give you guys my point of view, and then I'll wait the 2 weeks to let you guys digest it and make determinations on if you agree with anything. But I will let you know what my motions will be tonight, so you have at least something to think about of what I would like to say on that one. So on that particular one, when I asked to have examples of what discriminating housing and land use practices that the city of Fedge Way, since this is the book for the city of Fedge Way, had, the one that was brought up is something that could be used as questionable or legit. And at one point, a previous council had required a multifamily school impact fee of $22,000 per door, which de facto put a lockdown on multifamily housing. And most people think of multifamily housing as, I'm gonna use the word poor for lack of a better term. So I could see that one as being a potentially questionable one. But when I look for somebody that says past discriminatory housing and land use practices, I'm looking for something that was actually sent to us on the HOAs and stuff like that, where there is actually in the city still on the books for HOAs some pretty bloody discriminatory stuff, mentioning that only Caucasians can own property. Or the, I don't think they use the word slave, but the black or the colored helpers could live on the property too. Now, that's something that's brought up to the council, and I'm pretty sure this council by next year will have most of those things removed and eradicated from the books. I know that does not go through the city because the city has nothing to say about that, but I know if there's enough people here and there's enough people who usually sit in these chairs who will disagree with having that still in our city, and all it is a little bit of a conversation and showing people the correct way, and they're going to make that change. So I know by this time next year that will be taken care of. But in the books we're going to be publishing, if we do not have a past discriminatory housing and land use practice that were on the books since pretty much the city of Fedge Way has been incorporated, then I believe that any term that says that should be removed. I do not believe that we should have anything in the book that is not factually accurate, and I believe any past discriminatory housing or land use terminology in here should be removed because it is not factually accurate. If we do want to say that it is factually accurate to use the $22,000 per door created, then I would request that we put a further in there noting that. That is actually the only thing we could find throughout the whole bloody history of the city of Fedge Way that was crushingly discriminatory.
So, could I just ask Keith
Go.
a question? So are you referring to the history of the community as a whole, or simply since we've incorporated?
The first. I mean, I think the statement is, those things have happened here. Whether or not it was at your hands, or whether it happened when this was unincorporated King County or territorial days, some of those covenants were put on in the 40s, which isn't that long ago. So what I would say is, I think the intent is to say, those happened here. Not necessarily by your hands, but those happened where Federal Way stands today. I think there are some other examples, council member. I didn't want to get down into like debating whether some of our existing land use zoning is preferential or not, but we could have those conversations, and maybe I can bend your perspective a little.
Would be those particular items, if you were thinking right now, are they preferential to people with money or people of ethnic backgrounds?
With money.
Okay. Well, that's how life usually is. People with money usually get a lot more than people who don't have money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilor Dovey, or Councilor, actually, before we, Council
Well, I
President?
was just going to give you an example. I do know of a person who was buying a house in the 70s in our community that was not going to be able to buy because they were African American, but since they were actually, one person was full-blooded Indian and the other was African American, they allowed them to do it. Right or wrong, that is what they believed happened to them. And so, they called it redlining, and I don't know what went on around here. I didn't grow up here even, so I don't think the city itself ever was involved in anything like that, but I would wonder what happened in this community as a whole.
Councilor Dovey?
Yeah, I think Councilman McDaniel brings up a very good point. The things that I read that you were sent to us, there was a reference from 1939 on I think a lot on Steel Lake, and 1940 there was a subdivision that had some things that you wouldn't be proud of in it. But I think if you're going to be historical, instead of painting this brown brush that this is the way it was, just name the 3 or 4 that you gave to us and say, that's not the way we do business here, instead of making this brush like, oh, something tragic and was bad in Federal Way from 1939 and 1941 and 1942. I mean, we're way past that.
Well,
And the $22,000, that, I wasn't on the council then, but that came from the school district. That didn't come from the council. That came from the council voting to agree to do that, I believe.
Yeah,
So-
after we had 1,000 units
Yeah.
come into the city the year
Yeah,
before.
so that
So-
would not be, I think that's a bad example of,
There was a considerable community outrage when we had 1,000 units come in within a year. This happened in 2016 and 2017, and that was an attempt, and the school district asked us for that, and we passed that along.
Yeah.
But what I would say for the record is, just in regard to more recent, and if it didn't make it in here, I'd say a few years ago, I awarded Harold Booker Sr. The key to the city. And Harold was here. He stood at that very podium, and his son is still his children are still in the community. And as a result of what happened to Mr. Booker, he was actually prohibited from actually being allowed into a swimming pool in the city of Federal Way back in the 60s. And in the community of Federal Way, not by the city. And what occurred then was the creation of a civil rights committee that the former mayor and council member Jean Burbidge actually was one of the key people. She and her husband, Dr. Burbidge, as well as quite a number of people. In fact, in this very room, about half of that side of the room was filled with people that were part of that committee and that were honored and were all given keys to the city for incidents that had happened in the community prior to incorporation. So that was in the early 60s that happened in our community. So, and a lot of these, in the deeds and HOAs, it actually literally listed out things that were racially, just absolutely like straightforward racially discriminatory. They're void. There's been a state law that has now said any language like that in a deed is just null and void. But I wanted to let you know that in this very room, actually, just recently I saw Harold Booker's son. I was getting a shot, and I was getting an update on my shots, and I was sitting right there just waiting for it, and Harold Booker Jr. came down and sat next to me, and so his father, that meant a lot to him that his father was recognized. But that's part of what was happening here, and it was really powerful that members of the community came together on their own. But let me turn it over to Councilmember Walsh.
I was just going to say, perhaps instead of the verbiage that's in there, perhaps some type of verbiage saying that the city of Federal Way has actively worked on eliminating equities that existed in generations prior to its creation, something along that line.
I know that Councilmember Sepetosa, did you want to weigh in?
Yes. I am struggling because history is history. What happened in the past does shape the future of anything. And so whether it happened in the, early 1900s or whatever, it does shape the history of us. And if we don't talk about it And if we decide to remove it, then it means we're saying it didn't exist when it really actually did exist and has happened to people. And I think one thing that I want to say is, when people tell you their story and stuff that has happened to them, believe them. And so it may not have been written anywhere. And like you said earlier, a lot of things were not written, therefore, in the books, right? School, you didn't learn about things because they were left out. And so I can't speak for what didn't happen in Federal Way, but I do know throughout the nation, discrimination does happen, did happen, continues to happen. And so to think that Federal Way is different, isolated, and did not happen here, I don't believe. I lived in Federal Way, not Federal Way, I'm sorry, my house in Des Moines, the deeds actually did say that you cannot sell this property to people who are colored and everything. And so when we bought it in late 1990, I believe, or 1997, I saw it. It was in there. So I don't know why I would think Federal Way is different. I have not seen it here. I don't know. However, I do believe anything that has happened in this country, in our region, in King County, South King County, continues to happen because people can't, sorry.
Councilor, thank you very much. Councilor McDaniel?
Yeah.
What about, I think Councilmember Walsh had the beginning of a statement, and I saw Keith starting to take it down. What if there was some language that we could provide to the council, for a potential amendment at second reading that says, understanding the historical discrimination and even discrimination that has occurred in our community,
Well, I mean,
Councilmember Sapadasa, I see you're shaking your head. What are you thinking?
No, continue. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
did you
Yes, sir.
want to say?
I wasn't going to say anything.
What is it in particular that has your concern? Is that,
My concern is it says the city of Federal Way, not the community of Federal Way, not the previous past history. I'm looking at what the city of Federal Way, what my city has done since its incorporation. I understand the past grievances that people have and past things that happened, I wasn't around for. They're still on the books in some places because people haven't cleaned them up, but none of them are enforceable, and none of those were done by the city. Those were done by individual people, making individual poor decisions. And so my issue is that the book says the City of Federal Way Comprehensive Plan, and if it has something about some kind of discriminatory practices or acts, something like that, I'd love to have it actually show it. And right now, at the moment, the only thing I've heard so far is the $22,000 per door thing. And in my mind, I need to see, again, my mindset, I would love to, not love to see, if I'm having those kind of words put in here that are going to be, put in the tomb that's going to be our history for our city, then I'd prefer to see that it actually had some bigoted or racial things that we were trying to address and overadapt. And the bigoted and racial things that we're addressing and overadapting were done by personal individuals within a community that was not part of the city of Federal Way at the time it was done. And
that's
that's
a point well
my big issue on it.
I've been a part of city government for 22 years, and I don't believe that we've done anything of that nature during our time, during the time that I've been up here, and I know that we've got council members. Yeah, and we've got long-term council members. So council, actually, do you have that in the motion in the form of a motion?
No, I'm gonna wait till next reading for any kind of motions. So I just got my last one, and then I'll shut down my mic and let anybody else do what they want.
Ryan, do you have any suggestions?
No, if he doesn't want to make a motion, I don't think we should try to pry it out of him. But I do want to, just as a point of order, we should probably call for public comment before we actually start making motions.
Got it. Okay. Is there any public comment?
I have one more comment if you want to wait till then and then throw yours in on top of it. I appreciate that, thank you. Just in case you want to add to it or make comments on it, thank you. My last one is under Chapter 7 Centers, and this will be the last one I have, and this would be a removal again. So it's under CG4, foster equitable, inclusive, and sustainable urban development practices in the city center to ensure well-being and prosperity of all community members, comma, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, immigrants and refugees, people with low incomes, people with disabilities, and communities with language access needs. In my mind, it should stop at community members. All of those people are my community members. They're all my relatives. They're all my friends. They're all my family. They're all people who are part of my community. To separate that out, I have a problem with. They should all be included in community members, not comma, and, or whatever it is. It should be just left at community members. Because down later on, in national environments, it does not use that. It says ensure access to publicly preserved open spaces is available to all members of the community, full stop.
I would be fine with that.
I'd like to ask who wanted that in there, that sentence in there.
I'd have to go back and look at the drafts, council member, to see when that popped up that way. It might have been initially written that way, and I don't know that answer right now.
Thank you.
And then
Right.
final thought on that one is, like I said, the big one on that one is community members are community members. I don't want to distinguish, I don't want to break them into categories. I don't want to, you know, they're my community members, that's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's open it up for public comment. I've got one pink sheet. Vivian Alexander. Vivian?
Okay. I can tell you my insides are shaking right now, so I'm just trying to bring myself down. I really appreciate all your comments, Councilmember McDaniel, because I know that, at least from having a conversation with you a couple of weeks ago, I think you're really sincere about your motivation for having reasons for bringing comments forward. However, I feel so strongly that any reference to history is just a plus. You mentioned yourself not knowing about the internment, and I guess maybe that's what's making me shake, because I'm Buddhist, and I'm a Shin Buddhist, and my temple is many Japanese Americans, and they will tell you their stories about the concentration camps and being removed from this country for no reason other than the president at that time wanted it to happen, and had been advised against it. So the history part of redlining and racism is so strong in this country. And maybe that's why you feel so strongly about having certain wording removed, because you don't want to be identified. Nobody up there wants to be identified as a racist. I don't want to be. But I went to Antioch University and had a class and was told at that time, you know, you're all racist. I think we're ethnocentric, but I really got upset with that. But there was a reason for them saying that. Okay, so I feel strongly, I just want you to know, that needs to remain in the comprehensive plan. It was put in there for a reason. It was not put in to call any of us names or anybody in the city of Federal Way calling them names or calling them racist. It's simply identifying history, just like identifying history when we say we're sitting on the land of the Suquamish or Muckleshoot, right? Which we don't acknowledge ever. However, that's a reality too. So the other part is the outcome. You sat in on the Human Services Commission, and you saw when we were going through all of this about scoring. And one of the important things about scoring is the outcomes. What are the outcomes? So an outcome does have to indicate that as a result of helping to make things more equitable, we are expecting or hoping for outcomes, for positive outcomes. There's an increase in housing, there's an increase in people graduating from college, from high school, from technical school. So I think outcome, that's how I view outcome. And I think that should remain. So thank you for indulging me. You can here, I'm still shaky about this because obviously it's a strong one for me.
Thank you, Vivian. Actually, I'm sorry. Melissa Hamilton, did you want to give public comment? We'll get your pink sheet in just a few moments. Actually, while she's making, yes, please. While she's making her way over there, Councilmember Hunter, did you want to add something?
I can wait.
Okay, she'll wait.
This is a very interesting conversation. So, I do think we need to have more of this conversation. However,
Melissa?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Our council president left the room. We've been going for almost 3 hours. Would you mind if we recess for like just a few minutes? And that way, I think all of us should be here to hear your comment.
yes, please.
Why don't we recess? Council, is that okay that we recess for a few minutes for just a quick break? How much time? About 7 minutes, 10 minutes? Seven. Council, we're in recess for the next 7 minutes. What time we got right now? I've got why don't we say 9:20? We'll resume. We're in recess. Please come back on time.
Yeah, I got a message from PSC that's like, hey, power's out. And I'm like, and then I got
Round two.
Are we back? Are we all back? Okay, actually. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Melissa Hamilton, actually, as you make your way up there, I do want to have a point of, are we on? Yeah, we're on. I want to have a legal counsel have an opportunity. There was a suggestion that between first and second reading, we could move some things around. Legal counsel, Ryan Call.
Well, two things. One, we can only amend the comprehensive plan once a year. So we're kind of at the end of the year. We need to get this done this year. And logistically and practically speaking, hoping that we can all come to consensus at second reading and make changes from the dais at that meeting is not very practical. So if we can tonight come to consensus on what should be in this ordinance and then give direction to staff to make those changes between first and second reading, that's the best way to handle it.
Okay, great, thank you. Melissa Hamilton. For public comment.
Okay, thank you for that 7 minutes. That gave me a chance to kind of get my thoughts together. So it's a great conversation that we're having, a conversation that we need to have, but it's a conversation that I think needs to include more people that's, not in this room right now. And something I learned when I went to university was the intent behind a law is really important. It kind of determines how the law is interpreted. And so I think if we can look at the intent of the verbiage in the comprehensive plan, then maybe we can come to an understanding of what it's trying to do. And so maybe that can be a conversation of, 3 or less, or maybe it's a conversation in 2 weeks. Maybe it's a conversation just between a few people. I'm not sure what that looks like, but understanding that intent, because it seemed like there was even disagreement on what the word outcome meant. I do want to share some of my personal story. I think history sometimes isn't as far back as we like to throw it. So I went to a school in South Carolina, and that school was called Thomas Sumter Academy. That school was an all-white school by design. It was a private Christian school. I went to that school in the 80s. And what was going on in the South, and I know we're talking about the South, so it was a little bit different, but the Civil Rights Act happened in 1964. The following year, there was lots and lots and lots of private education schools that popped up. Why? Because they were trying to avoid the Civil Rights Act. And so I think that's important to hear people's personal stories, because I think it can open our eyes. And so, like I said, I think we need more people in the room that aren't here for this conversation, and I will just leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much, Melissa. All right, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. I just wanted to say something about the internment camps and what Councilmember Daniel said. When our middle son was a junior at Decatur, he had the opportunity to teach his fellow classmates about the internment camps, because my husband's family, his mother, his father, his grandparents, his aunts and uncles, were all in internment camps because they were Japanese American. But for here in the Northwest, there could have been very well people who lived here in what is now Federal Way who were taken into camps, because Puyallup, the Puyallup Fairgrounds, was a temporary camp. It was a temporary internment camp. And many people didn't know that until, recently. It wasn't talked about until recently, that there is actually a temporary camp here in the Pacific Northwest. And anyway, I just wanted to say that there are people today that don't believe that that happened. and its history, and we can't erase history. We need to continue to talk about it so that it never happens again. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor McDaniel?
Yeah, since legal has given us some information, then I will make some adjustments. I will leave the word outcome, and I will lean on my diversity commission to give me some explanations on their belief on this one, and maybe we'll see if that makes a change for me or not. As for the past discriminated housing policies, I'm going to make a motion, I'm going to say it right now, I'm going to make a motion that we add verbiage in there stating what we found in the city, and I cannot give you verbiage. It's something that we're going to have to, I'll lean on the professionals to give it in there, stating that the only thing that we could find in there was that one ordinance. There is issues with private, I don't know how you even say it. The HOAs are private, so how is that, what do you guys refer to those as?
So where you're headed with this, council member, just if I can give you my comment or
Go for it.
thought. So we did not do an exhaustive search. I would be hesitant to want to pen something that said, this is the only thing we've ever done. I think there's a way to get to where you want to get to without being so limiting.
Yeah.
Because we just haven't done an exhaustive search. I haven't done like research to say this is the only thing that ever happened in Federal Way. Because we just didn't have the time and resources to do that.
Understood. It's like everything in life, you got to throw away a few to get one win, I guess. Well, that's still a topic for consideration in my mind, even though I won't push for it tonight then. But the one that I will push for is going to be underneath of the center, and it will be Goal CG4. And are we at the point now of making motions, Mayor?
Why don't we do this? Let's have the city clerk read the ordinance title. We'll have a motion in a second, then we'll do discussions. And that would be the perfect time.
And at that point, I can make,
Yes.
okay.
Let's do that. All right, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 894, Ordinance Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to updating and amending the Federal Way Comprehensive Plan and official maps pursuant to the State of Washington Growth Management Act, GMA, Chapter 3670A revised, and rezoning approximately 55 acres from multifamily residential, RM 3600, to commercial CE.
All right, Councilmember Adobe, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 3rd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second. Now, for discussion, we'll start with Councilmember McDaniel.
I'm ready to just make the motion then.
Okay?
All right. I move to would it be a friendly amendment then, or would I just say?
Just to amend.
Okay. I make a motion to amend Chapter 7 Centers, Goal CG4, to remove all language after the word members. And my reasoning behind this is, if you live in my community, you are a member of my community, there is no exclusions in that, and that is my mindset. As a colleague just told me, that is how I look at it. It might not be how everybody else looks at it, but that's how I look at it. So that's my motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Adobe?
I have some discussion point I'd like to, just saying after community, comma, remove the rest, I'd like a little bit more detail of what's actually being removed.
All right, I'll read
Yeah, I mean.
to the point, and then I'll say this is where I'd stop, and I'll add the
Right,
rest.
please
Let's do
be
that.
specific to what you're asking.
No problem. It's going to be underneath page C-8 also. So it's Goal CG4. It currently reads, foster equitable, inclusive, and sustainable urban development practices in the city center to ensure the well-being and prosperity of all community members. That's where I'd stop it. Comma, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, immigrants and refugees, people with low incomes, people with disabilities, and communities with language access needs.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Councilmember Honda?
I would like to understand why that is there and who put it there before, I know so if we vote today and this goes through today, then in 2 weeks we can't change it back if I understand more about why it's there.
Actually, that's a legal question
Yeah.
for Ryan.
So I'm interpreting the current pending motion as a motion to amend the motion to forward this. It's the motion to forward with the direction of staff to change the ordinance as directed. So we would change the ordinance, and then what would be presented to council would be with the modification. The issue with changing things at second reading is the same problem that I stated before, which is an impromptu change on the dais. A, there's no guarantee there will be a consensus, so it could all just fall apart at the last minute. And B, it's very hard for us to make those kind of textual changes from, at the last minute. So to the degree that we're capable, we should get this done tonight if we can reach consensus.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion? So there's a, Councilmember Dovey?
I do have one discussion. When you go through all the things after the comma, where you're calling out different names, people, we're in a society that continues to add names and different things to that list. And so I kind of like the thing, you make it stop right there and you don't name all sorts of things, because you're going to have to add to that sometime in the future. You're going to come back and say, people from the moon have to be added to it, or whatever it is. And by taking Councilmember McDaniel's suggestion, we've made it pretty final. It's everybody, and you don't have to name somebody specifically. So I kind of like that. It gives a lot more flexibility, I think, to the comp plan.
All right, thank you. Councilor Tran?
Yeah, I think the reason, the way I understand it is that the reason we put those group of people in there to highlight the historical aspect and even current, the discrimination that these group of people still experience up until today. We basically bring up the, to call attention to this group of people. So I am fine of including those language in there.
Okay.
I'll make a
Councilor McCain?
reference to that. If that was true, then why isn't in every option the document does not have that same language? There is another option under natural environment where it just ends members of community, and that's not the only one in the book. There's multiple times in the booklet where this extra language was not added when they could have added it to there. So if we're going to play the game, then put it all throughout the booklet.
They could have, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Honda?
I just have a process question. So when we take this vote, are we done talking about this?
Well, this vote will be for the amendment, and then we'd go on to the main, whether it fails or whether it's adopted, then we move on to the main approval of the entire update.
Okay, then I'll ask my question after this.
Okay, so as to the amendment, which would exclude the language as set forth, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Stephanie? Would the city clerk please poll?
Councilmember Asefa Dawson,
Nay.
Councilmember McDaniel,
Aye.
Councilmember Honda,
Nay.
Councilmember Tran,
Nay.
Councilmember Walsh,
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey,
Aye.
Council President Kochmar.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-3.
All right. Now, as to the main motion, Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. I have a question about what happens next. So at Skateboard today, a member from PRSC was there talking about comprehensive plans and stated that cities need to turn them in, before January or, but they're not going to be too upset if they don't get them all in. So after this, after we're done, it goes to PRSC. They review it, and then they can tell us if we need to do something else, is how I understood that, what he was saying. Is that correct?
So, there's a few things out there. The first thing is, and we all hope this doesn't happen, is somebody could appeal the adoption of our comprehensive plan being inconsistent with countywide planning policies, Vision 2050, Growth Management Act. That's part of the process, and hopefully that doesn't happen, but that is part of the process. After you guys approve it, we still have to get it certified by PSRC because PSRC is the regional transportation planning organization. In other words, they hand out grants for transportation projects. So they have a certification role in everybody's comprehensive plan to then qualify for transportation grants. So that's an important part of the process that PSRC has, and it happens after you guys adopt it. They then check it against consistency with their Vision 2050 plan.
And if they did, if they see something that they don't approve of, then it comes back to us for further revisions?
So they would technically ask for us to amend our comprehensive plan to incorporate any revisions that they think are necessary.
Have they ever done that?
Yes.
Oh,
They have conditionally certified plans based on the city taking additional actions. I don't know that I'm unaware that there are any plans that they haven't certified, but that may indeed be the case.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. All right. All right, there's been an amendment to the main motion, and that has now been adopted into the comprehensive plan periodic update. There's been a motion and a second and a discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. Great job, Keith, great job by you and your team.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it. Okay, now, council reports. It's the second meeting of the month. We'll start with council, we'll start at this end of the dais. Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I have a document I'll pass out that each council member can take and read on their own. I brought up many times idea of talking about an ice skating rink in the holiday season, and I was able to get the business plan from the one in Coeur d'Alene that's been running for 4 years.
Oh.
And I happen to know, he's an acquaintance, I know the owner, he just sold it to another party, and I was able to, and there's all sorts of questions, and I'm not saying that we should do this or not, but I wanted to give everybody a actual 4-year business plan, what it cost, how much they made, and it might be something we look at for 2026 or something like that, but if you don't start now, you never get to it, so.
That's right.
And other than that, we have our land use meeting in December, and I was up at the ski resort yesterday, and who knows, they may open Friday.
Wow, that's great. All right.
Saturday? Oh, well, Saturday.
Saturday. All right, Councilmember Walsh.
I would just simply like to say that I think that our trip for the National League of Cities Conference was a very good thing to do. I think that all of us learned a lot from there, gained greater insights, and things that will benefit our city. Also, one of the things that we talked about, I mean, there was, you know, I want to assure everybody that weren't talking about any city business when we were, you know, out to dinner together and stuff. But it was commented about the council president and others commented about the appreciating that we can have very frank discussions and we're still friends, you know, and we can disagree, but we don't need to be disagreeable. And I want to thank all of my colleagues here for that. And because I consider every one of you up here on the dais a friend. So, and that's my report.
Well said, Councilmember. Thank you. Councilmember Tran?
I have no report, Mike.
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. So I do have one more budget question, and I'm just going to ask, I don't need an answer tonight, but in the back of the budget book, there are a list of principal taxpayers in the city and a list of principal employers, and I'd just like to know the difference between those, but not tonight. Saves
Principal
employers.
taxpayers and principal employers.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd just like to know the difference in what they are and how you come up with that. So that's for later, not now. Councilmember Asefa Dawson and I attended the National Foundation of Women Legislators, And then we went to the National League of Cities, and it's been a very busy 11 days, actually, learning and meeting people and making contacts. At National League of Cities, I was reelected as Secretary of APAMO, which is Asian American Pacific Islander Municipal Officers. And I'm also on the board of Women in Municipal Government. And I had the opportunity to meet Judge Hatchett. She is a TV judge, but in real life, she's a judge. And she had amazing things to say about this country and things that she's observed. I will have at our next meeting more information about things I learned and people I met. I also attended for the last 2 days the Cascadia Innovation Corridor meeting, which is housing issues from Vancouver, British Columbia, all the way to Oregon. And I had the opportunity to talk to developers. And the one thing I will say about that before the next 2 weeks is that I sat next to, well, Council President and I sat next to a developer who's worked in Federal Way, and he said that Federal Way is doing the right things to get developers here. So that's good for our staff and good for the council to know. Thank you.
Great news, thank you. Councilor McDaniel.
Yes, thank you. So on Saturday the 9th, after the Veteran Celebration, I was able to go over to a recovery center. There is a gentleman I'd actually met a lady named Lucky at the LINK program who works in Tukwila, and then when she came to meet with me in the city, she brought a gentleman named, I think it's Hussein, is it the proper, what's that? Hussein? Yeah, I think it's the proper pronunciation of his name. And he had been a recovering drug addict, but he's in the Somali community, and it is frowned upon in the community to even accept that those are a potential problem. It's not something they have back in their home country. And when he came out of addiction, one of the things that he had chosen to do is to build a center or find a way to help his other brothers and sisters in his community out of that. So he had invited me to an open house cutting of a ceremony, ribbon cutting ceremony for the location. It's actually a house in Federal Way, was a B&B, and it's being converted into a location where addicts can come, and it's up to 8 people, but it's not just normal addicts. It is people who are from the Somalia community, and faith is Islam, which means they have certain restrictions. So his house is actually becoming a safety net for that kind of situation. When I walked into the house thinking it wasn't going to be very full, it was standing room only. And I will tell you right now, I listened to a group of probably 20 women when they translated for me talk about their past histories with this epidemic. And if people think that the drug epidemic is only one classification, it is hitting every single member of a society. And their biggest thing was getting it to be less stigmatized by the community. It is almost, if your child has a drug issue in their community, it's something you don't talk about. And these ladies had watched enough children die from it that they had decided that that was the last time that was going to happen. And I literally watched a room full of love, literally love, you could feel it in that place, make a decision at that point in time that they were going to change it, and they were going to push back against the community's belief in the system. And they are looking at trying to start another house for females. And I found it to be interesting and at the same time aspiring to see that one person going through hell can come back out and bring a whole bunch of people with them. And that's happening in our communities everywhere. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him, and I told him I'd do whatever I could to help the guy out. So thank you for my time.
Thank you. Councilmember Seffa-Dawson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And again, thank you for the robust discussion. And at the end, we may not agree, but we're good. In the conference, there was a lot we learned. And one thing that I really appreciated was the fact that different cities, first of all, it's not, whatever we're experiencing is not unique to us. Everybody's going through the same thing. But having all these best practices from different cities, different areas addressing some of those issues. And so we've brought back a lot of ideas and suggestions as to what they've done in their community to alleviate or overcome problems. And so it was really great. I don't think we had enough time, or some of the sessions were not repeat sessions. None of them were repeat, actually. So it was hard to attend all of them, but the ones we did, I think, if we could all share our information, I think there was a lot of value to the trip, and what we can utilize here or bring here, I think would be something that we should talk about and see what we can implement here, because there were some great ideas and why reinvent the wheel. But at the National Foundation, we learned, there was a session on vaping, and some of the stuff we learned, I didn't even know was possible or existed in schools with young kids, and how they disguised these things. It was just incredible, and now I don't know if I can trust kids walking around even with a highlighter or a pen. It's like, I asked, do these pens work? And they're like, oh yeah, you can write with them, but they're actually a disguise. So I don't know if the school districts are addressing that or looking into that, but it was just very interesting to know that these happen. Young kids are really addicted. And they said one puff was equivalent of 50 cigarettes? 200, okay.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So hopefully our school districts are aware and are doing something about it. Thank you.
All right. Boy, that's an interesting fact. Thank you so much. It is. Council President Kochmar.
We also learned that fentanyl is so dangerous that even Narcan is not good enough to bring them back. It's so potent. And they've got fentanyl in everything now, in the marijuana, in the pills that you buy. So you just have to be so careful with children. One thing, Mayor, that we saw,
Yes.
wonderful Christmas lights on trees. Lots of them. And I believe Councilmember Walsh has some beautiful pictures to show you.
Oh, I'd love to see them.
Okay,
All
and
right.
when we're talking about a skating rink, we might be able to combine that with a farmer's market and have a Christmas market.
Wow.
And have a skating rink and have portable Christmas trees that we can put out every year with wonderful lights and have kids skating. I mean, we want a community that our families can really, the reason I liked, hey, McDaniel. The reason I liked your amendment was because I don't want to delineate anybody. I want us all to be members. And that's one thing Judge Hackett, who is an African-American woman, said to a room full of women of all different colors, nationalities. She said, "You are my sisters." And that's what we are. We are a community of people from diverse backgrounds. That's one of our strengths. And so that we are there to help each other. And I don't want to delineate anybody out. I want us all to be members of our community. And I think that we as leaders need to keep promoting that, along with Christmas lights and skating rinks and things that our children can do in the dead of winter and remember with fondness as they grow older. So thank you, Mayor. That's my
All right. Thank you
piece
so
for the
much.
day.
Yes. We will actually. Is there an updated report, EJ?
No, there's nothing new since last time.
Okay. I want to put a period at the end of the sentence here. I want to thank the council for, this was a momentous evening, and that not only do we have a very crowded agenda, this represents the end of a year-long process that we've engaged the community, our directors, our staff, the management team, Brian, every department with regard to the budget. And we now have a budget for the next 2 years, which is close to $400 million in an operating budget. And I just want to say thank you to the council, thank you to management team. Next week, also want to say next week is Thanksgiving. I wish everybody, we wish everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. And I want to let you know I'm very thankful for you, the staff, and the great community that we have. With that, everybody, we're adjourned.